Yeah, I mean,
Go look in the service center. And anytime you go to order something, they got Linux machines back there. Any actual computers laying around there, go look at it. They're all Linux.
nice.
And like I said, I'm pretty sure they're running Gnomes. It's got this perfect thing down the side. The little shell side part, whatever.
Oh, I work for Lowe's. LZ. I work for Lowe's. I work for a very large insurance company. What's in the paint department? Yeah, the Lowe's. Pay everybody.
All right, so what else? One more. Come on.
You can take it. You gotta introduce yourself.
Travis runs Windows.
No, Windows runs from Travis.
Also known as Ubuntu.
That was gonna be my favorite distro, but
Travis runs Sensor.
my favorite distro is 3.11 for workers.
I really think Windows 9.
Well, I need networking. So I need like the 1.11. Because I have the whole worker thing running like. Alright, we'll see how this works. Look at the interesting presentation. I'm going to present on Enlightenment from KDE. Perfect. And we'll get to the reasons why that is here after a bit. Alright. So we'll begin here a little bit. It's a tiny ass thing here to read. This is basically about my personal experience using Linux as a desktop since 2000. Everybody talks about getting that on. Get it back up. How's it for you?
It's warm in here, but other than that.
Yeah.
We got the lights on.
Want my shirt? What? The lights on? Trying to get romantic, Ralphie?
I'm trying to get romantic. But on the mood music.
Yeah, where's the move? Come on, someone got some.
Oh,
we got
so
some
honestly,
tunes.
I hear R. Kelly. Like, what's going on?
I know, I'm sorry.
Run away.
This presentation's going to suck a little bit because I left out audio and I have no images. So all that stuff will come later on. Okay. So I've run Linux as a desktop since 2000. I've not run anything else. I unfortunately have to run Linux sometimes for some vector programs, Flash, Fireworks, Illustrator, stuff like that. I don't dual boot. I did that in QEMU for a while, and lately it's VirtualBox for those type of things. Never touched OS X or any of the Apple stuff. This is pretty much going to cover where I've been, what I've been using and doing over the past 17 years or so with desktops, why I ran one versus the other, what caused me to switch at the time that I am. Who am I personally? I'm a developer and system administrator. In the open source world at times, especially like with regard to Gentoo, I'm a bit infamous. I can cause controversy. I do stir the pot at times, which I think is a good thing. Sometimes you can get labeled a troublemaker for doing those things. I am a very friendly person. I'm polite. I'm respectful. I show manners. I was raised here in the South, so I try to be a true Southerner. People tend to perceive me very differently online than I am in person. I come off very, I don't know, harsh, dry, impersonal, a jerk, however you want to label it. And I'm a very verbose person in person or online. So you see me type a lot or talk a lot, those two things are the exact same thing. This presentation is kind of a discussion. I'm not going to say I know everything about everything. If you hear or see something you know something better than I do, jump in and say something. If you really want to dispute, go ahead, but let's not get too crazy with the debate, because I will debate you for hours. Windows is the best thing ever. We are going to cover a lot of stuff here, and hopefully I can try to get through as much as I can, because all the stuff you guys pretty much want to see is then probably at the end as far as visuals, stuff like that. So for the first 11 or so years, like most people, I ran GNOME. That was the first desktop I came across. There was a time back before like the whole Red Hat Fedora thing where there was a company called Eximian. Eximian really enhanced GNOME to a lot of ways that what we consider to be GNOME these days. Things like evolution, a lot of different internals that they did really came from Eximian. So they were pretty influential in the GNOME project. GNOME is a GTK-based desktop. It originally started with GTK and then GTK2. It's kind of gone through a whole series of window managers. When I first started running GNOME, I was running Softfish, which I like. I have no clue why they decided to replace it with Metacity, but for whatever reason, it was replaced with Metacity, which later on by GNOME 3 and GTK3 got replaced by Mutter, which I never used myself. And if you ever want to do any sort of like effects, you know, the cube, fire, all the different lofty windows, different stuff like that, you pretty much are doing that with Compass, Barrel, Compass Fusion, whatever the different names are. Compass and Barrel kind of combine together to make Compass Fusion or something along those lines. When I used it, it may have changed since then, but it was pretty unstable. It crashed a lot of times. I had to revert back to whatever my other window manager, Softfish, Metacity, was a pain in the butt. And it replaced your window manager, so if you were running a theme or something like that, it changed and you had to do that with them. Other effects, applets or whatnot, they were done at the time via desklets, which were done in Python. They weren't really well supported or widely used and really catch on. They for the most part worked pretty well. And some of them were a little unstable depending on what it was. My main reason for using it is because I like a little Apple starter bar thing that you roll up the mouse and enlarge the icons. Eventually, another thing came out called the Font Window Navigator, which gave me that Apple-like start bar. So I ditched G-Desklets because I didn't care about all the rest of the little applet-type things or whatnot. I just stuck with that. I love GNOME. GNOME was a great office desktop environment with Evolution, with Calendar, with Contact, with all that type of stuff. It's got integration with what used to be called GNOME Meeting, which is now called EasyGov for voice over IP, for SIP, for video conferencing, and it also has stuff like GNU Cache if you want to do finances for personal or business. A lot of stuff. It really is probably the best all-around environment for most things, but it's a pretty heavyweight environment. Almost every person in GNOME has been easily thinkable. There's usually been more than one theme. I, in the past, have always played with different themes. I'll show you some of my screenshots of GNOME back in the day. But I've almost never ran a standard theme when I was using GNOME or GTK. The reasons why I ended up moving on from GNOME is GNOME 3 was coming out. GTK 3 was mostly out, and I was already using some GTK apps. GTK 3 apps and some GNOME 3 apps, which include the ones you see listed there, Evolution, EasyGov, gedit, etc. I did never run GNOME 3. I wasn't against it or anything like that. Just at the time, I also run like a Rage 128 video card or whatnot. We just didn't have the capabilities to run what GNOME required at the time. It was okay with comments and barrel and stuff, but for whatever reason they were doing with compositing and GNOME 3, it was just too much for it. It really started to suffer heavily on Gen 2, and I think that was probably my biggest driving factor. I didn't feel like dealing with packaging and maintaining GNOME and getting involved in all that. But shortly after my falling out years with Gen 2, so I was just kind of looking for whatever I could just use and not have to deal with it. The effects situation I was never totally 100% with because I always had to add something else on for the effects. It wasn't built in as part of GNOME or part of the environment. But I really never had issues with GTK or GNOME apps. I can't say that any of them crashed or buggy or unreliable, but it just came to the point where it was time to go on to something else. I ended up on KDE, which is now called Glassnode. That's something I'll get to in a bit. KDE is pretty well to this day, still maintained very well on Gen 2, so that's what I ended up on. The main reason that was selling me on KDE was KWin, and to this day I still like it. I think it's one of the best window managers out there all around for just a standalone window manager. KWin has always had superior performance on inferior hardware. All the effects you talk about with Compass and Barrel are available through KWin, and they don't require advanced hardware. I was able to switch over with my Rage 128 and do all kinds of just great stuff. Cube desktop, I think I have that on here. I can show you all that later. We'll go over the graphics stuff later. Anyway, Cube desktop, all that kind of stuff, it was nice. I was also, since I was coming from GNOME, I wanted something that had a complete PIM stack. PIM is basically your personal information software. That's going to be your email, calendar, contacts, that type of stuff. So if you add a contact in your email client, it shows up in your calendar if you want to schedule a meeting or something like that. So there's just integration between the different software. They're not totally standalone programs. You have to import, export everything too. So essentially that was my main reason for going there is because they had a stack. The email, contact, calendar, all that stuff was related. They also had replacements for all the applications that I was running on GTK GNOME, with the exception of EasyGov. And also like GNU Cache. That also is kind of why I go back to saying that I don't think KDE is as much of a business environment as GNOME or GTK stuff is. It is themable. I never really got into looking for other things as much as I did with GNOME or GTK. Can't really explain why that was the case. For some of the stuff that I wanted to do, I was able to do it via settings. Swap icons on the top bar, change colors of things, just little things like that. Instead of having to mess with the actual theme, I can just do that via settings in KDE. And of course you can export that, share, and deliver, stuff like that. It's interesting as far as that. An interesting little tidbit that came from KDE that kind of benefits everything right now, which is taking over the world, is WebKit. It began in KDE in 1998 as KHTML, it's one of the backend for Conqueror and whatnot. It's now used by Chrome and pretty much everything except for Firefox because it uses Gecko as an engine for that. But WebKit is extremely predominant, and there's GTK and Qt wrappers for it, and almost everything is using WebKit for the most part. And any sort of HTML that you see on any Linux desktop is probably coming via WebKit. I don't know any graphic toolkit that's tying into Gecko. I've not seen a GTK or a Qt Gecko interface. That's pretty much tied to Firefox and Mozilla products. So,
Well,
it's okay for that.
sorry, stupid question. So back to your PIM software stack thing.
Yes.
How does it do that? Does it have a little database running in the
We're
background?
going to get to that.
Okay, yes, sir.
Because that's a very important feature, is why I left.
Okay.
That's a very, very, very important
Good question, all right.
It is a really good question. Where do we get here? Okay. Where are we? Okay. So exactly the perfect timing. So it's 2017 and I'm leaving KDE and Plasma. Why? The damn PIM stack is freaking horrendous. It's horrible. They developed this wonderful centralized database called Akonadi. Why they couldn't use an actual real database, I don't know, but they did. Don't get me wrong. They ended up trying to use like SQL-like backends for Akonadi. They ended up having to use MySQL, which I can tell you as a database person, I absolutely hate it. It was used as an embedded database, and I literally on my laptop and desktop had a MySQL D process running in the background for KDE's PIM. Akonadi is a total piece of crap. It's like a central. I can almost show it to you in a sense, easier than explain it to you here in a bit, but basically it's like a central thing where, I can't even, man, it's
I mean, I can attest to that myself, because being on Ubuntu for so many years, and they changed it, it's garbage right now.
I think I took the panel, I can't show you because I got rid of it, I hated it so damn much. So there's like an interface to it where you can add and remove like what they call clients to Akonadi. A client to Akonadi would be like contacts or calendars, and it would basically interact with it as well as your email, stuff like that. It's total junk, man. I mean, it may be a decent concept initially, but like when I told it to not check my IMAP server, it was checking my IMAP server. When I tried to disable aspects of it and I log out and log back in, aspects will turn back on. You can kind of remove things like say you don't want to have a calendar or don't want your desktop notes to be part of it, stuff like that. You can remove those things. It's just really kind of wobbly in my opinion. And what gets even worse is part of the idea behind the whole Akonadi thing is this semantic desktop stuff. And I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard of that type of stuff. It came out of the European Union. They actually funded it as a big project. Semantic desktop is essentially saying that you don't know where stuff's at on your computer. So basically, anytime you get an email, a text, an image, whatever, it's basically going to go through and analyze everything and make this giant database of keywords, all stuff that finds in your system to kind of speed up searching. So for whatever reason, if you have to find something, you go type a search bar at the top and you can access that.
I believe that was actually due to European laws.
What's that?
I believe that was actually due to European laws.
Yeah, like I said, the European Union funded it. There was a big giant, don't take pictures of me.
Yeah, they wanted everything to be
Seriously, we've got pictures of me off there. That's pointed at that, not me.
Oh, okay, okay, I got you.
It's okay. I have no pictures of me online. I like people that way.
All right.
Aside from some old ones and whatnot.
So it's only for me anyway, so.
Oh, what are you trying? See, look at you, Ralph. He wants the lights down low. He wants to get his glowing shot.
Listen,
Look, just because we have this thing going on with laptops, just because he's giving me this curse. The reason this is not working today is that he bought a ThinkPad a while back after having the same HP laptop. Different model or whatnot, but the same general one. And he had problems with ThinkPads and iMac for problems with mine. So thank you. That's why I'm back at my HP. Thank you. So anyway, so part of the wonderful thing that Semantic Desktop did when it first came out is it would just sit there and max out your system. Your system would be running at like full speed, it would just be hammering on the hard drive. You end up with some database that was like, several gigabytes large for no reason. I don't know, it was just horrible junk. So they ended up, it was tied to something called Nepomuk or whatever, and Nepomuk was so bad they replaced it with another thing called Baloo. I just disable all that crap, and it's just a pain in the butt. But as you disable that, it starts to kind of cripple some of your search features and stuff like that with Akonadi, because everything's all just too integrated in a sense, and it's just a pain in the butt for me.
Just because we were in Amazon File and just do it like, when Unity does.
Yeah, no, this is really bad. I mean, it got to the point where I lost emails. I mean, like, just because they were trying to do something where your emails are kept on file like a mail folder, but then it was also indexing them in the Akonadi database, and I'm not exactly sure what happens, but sometimes I guess if the indexing is corrupted, it thinks the emails aren't on disk anymore, so let's go ahead and delete those emails or something. But all I know is emails that I had on disk were not on disk anymore, and I didn't delete them. So I wasn't happy about that. It happened several times. I opened up a few bugs. One time, where I actually didn't delete the emails, the filters went wonky, and my emails just ended up in like 30 or 40 different folders. And it was ridiculous. I found them after I left KDE. And like I was going to close the bug, I'm like, oh wait, there are my emails. I was migrating some over to another email client. Contacts was even worse, man. Even with all the semantic stuff turned off, it was still putting contacts in there. I had people's names associated with emails they didn't even belong to. It made absolutely no sense, and it was just corrupting stuff left and right. I would type somebody's name and have like 8 addresses for one person. It was just ridiculous, and it was just horribly unreliable. The calendar was even worse. The damn thing would never go off when it was supposed to. Sometimes it would go off repeatedly. I couldn't shut the damn up without logging out or something of that nature. It was just terrible.
Amarok used to be really good until they ruined it.
There is a lot of good software in KDE, but the PIM stack is not part of it. You know, all I can say about something like this and not give a whole, system D type thing is that I'm a big believer in Unix philosophy. I like databases, I like integration, but I believe things should be pretty individual on their own. And I understand the concept they were going for here. I believe actually Gnome's towards something similar. I haven't confirmed it myself, but everybody's kind of moving to some sort of centralized database backend for the PIM stack because you want to be able to share this information. You want your contacts and calendars and emails, stuff like that. You may want to type a note about something and have it be related to that too. So I mean, there is some good reasons for that, but they have to do it in ways to where they don't corrupt each other or cause each other to crash or cause instability that wasn't there before. People that love Kmail, which I never got to use, hated Kmail 2. And it was all because of the backend that they chose. It wasn't because Kmail 2 itself had a lot of problems. It was just the storage medium on the back end. And they're still kind of playing around with that whole thing, but for me, those type of things are great conceptually, but if they're causing people to lose email, you don't ship that kind of code. Not for a desktop like KDE. That to me is just flat out embarrassing. It makes a Linux world look like a freaking joke. I opened up a number of bugs. I've included a bunch of links here at the very end, but I didn't include the bugs. I can give you a link to those things if you want. You can find them on KDE if you want. It is what it is. Part of the idea behind the PIM, and you can go, there's a whole Wikipedia page about this, is they were making, like Akinadi and whatnot, and somebody brags about this, you can make an email client in 15 minutes. And I guess somebody went out and prototyped an email client in 15 minutes. But in the past 5 or 6 years that this has existed, there are not any other email clients. There are no other users of this damn database or Akinadi or other stuff. So it's like they developed all this great stuff to make it easier for people to develop it from the outside, but nobody does anything. Some people are working on Trojita. Happens to be a fair amount of Jeju developers are working on it because they're so sick of the instability of email and stuff. But unfortunately, Trojita lacks things that I need. Like, I think it has multiple accounts now. They're pretty anti-filters. I love filters. I know you can do stuff with Crocmail and other stuff locally on disk, but I really don't want to get into all that type of stuff. For some things, I do like the GUI. I like filters, so that's it for me. There just weren't alternatives. So, and I didn't like the PIM thing. Trojita does not use their PIM stack, though. I will say that. And again, so the only other alternative email client, the Kmail 2, doesn't use the PIM stack that was designed to help make PIM application development easier. So the whole concept kind of just fall on its face or whatever. KDE did sit there at about 500 megabytes. I can show you that if you want to see it right now, but I can guarantee I'm probably running about 500 megs RAM or so, even if I'm running nothing. This is with me having removed Akinadi, removing everything I possibly can on this thing. For whatever reason, it's just not want to slim down. Not that that's necessarily bad. Machines have a ton of RAM these days. I'm not out of RAM on any of my machines. I probably have 4 to 6 gigabytes spare at any time. That being said, it does affect some of the performance, and I think battery life a little bit too. And I'm just a nitpick. If I can run less RAM, I want to run less RAM. Especially if I'm not doing anything, it's just sitting there idle. And then the actual final thing, which is probably the actual nail in the coffin, is I don't know what the hell the thing's called right now. If you show up around KDE and say, I'm running KDE, oh no, you're running Plasma. I don't freaking care. It's KDE. It's coming from the KDE people. Everybody knows it's KDE. Why do you have to call it Plasma? I mean, now, no point, no shell, okay, fine. Call it KDE Plasma, shell, interface, whatever. I don't care. But trying to say KDE is not Plasma, Plasma not, it's just ridiculous. I don't need to deal with any crap like that. It's waste everybody's time. So, what's going to be my next desktop? There are a ton, of course, nobody knows what I'm going to go to. Right? We have no idea where I end up. Anyway. There is a ton of desktops to choose from out there. However, most of them are GTK based, not Qt based. So when you start talking about the various ones, XFC, GNOME, we'll get to Pantheon in a second, Mint, May, almost all the other ones you can think of are named right now. Can anybody think of one I have to name right now?
Cinnamon.
What's that?
Cinnamon.
Yeah, Cinnamon, there you go, that's GNOME 3. Yeah, Mate's GNOME, Cinnamon's GTK 3 and Mate's GTK 2. 90% of the desktops out there are GTK based, for whatever reason. There are now starting to be some alternative Qt desktops, but that whole story is kind of funny. So, there's KDE Plasma for the Qt, and then there's what started out as Maui, then became Hawaii, and I like both those names. I'm a tropical type person, we live in Florida, we've got beaches, but now it's called Leary. And essentially it's another Qt type desktop. It's made with Qt Click and some other stuff like that. I haven't ever messed with it. I can't really tell you a whole lot about it. The only thing you know about it is that's where the SDDM display or login manager came from that KDE has adopted. KDE has dropped their KDM login manager. SDDM is a new replacement. Now, there are other desktop environments out there. I don't know if everybody's heard of CDE.
Yes.
That's at companies like HP and IBM, or like HPUX, AIUX, and that's the probably environment that never changes. And it looks like it did 30 years ago, and it's stupid stable.
The
It
common
works.
desktop
They
environment.
never add new features. Yeah, it is probably the only hope for Linux, honestly, on the desktop, because it's the one environment you can write code in, and it'll always work.
I mean, so even i3, that's what I just found out.
Well, and the other thing about that sequence, I'm sorry, Ben.
i3. Yeah, i3 looks like an old Windows like BSD box. I mean, there's very little graphical.
Is it Linux based then, or?
Yeah, I think it's got its roots in BSD, but
I would just as a wild guess, I would say it's probably using GTK. That's just most of them. I mean, everything uses GTK. Chrome uses GTK. Firefox uses GTK. I think Chrome OS is based on GTK. I mean, everything.
that's probably OpenBox or BusyBox in a way.
CDE, I think, uses the. Damn, I can't remember the name of that toolkit. It's the same toolkit that I think they use for the Linux kernel. The TK toolkit. It's a real old school one. It's
The original TK?
Yeah. Like it's because, like I said, they want an environment that's not going to change and break. They don't care about features and bells and whistles. They just don't want to be recoding something every so many years for no purpose because somebody's had to break the API. And the other interesting thing about CDE that you don't see is there's a ton of GTK2 apps still. There's a bunch of Qt4 apps still. They don't have that version thing in CDE, so you don't have to worry that your app that you wrote then is broken now 10, 20 years later because they decided to go a different direction with the architecture. And some other people didn't like it, so they forked it, went another direction. They had two different things, they didn't do any of that stuff. So that's why big companies, major manufacturers like them for their internal purposes. But it's not a practical, you're not going to see anybody run a CDE.
It's ugly.
No person is going to choose to put CDE on their computer or their desktop, and if they do, they probably CDE developer.
That sounds like a worthy challenge.
Yeah, well.
Anyway, CDE stands for the Common Desktop Environment.
Yes.
It was written a long time ago.
For the purpose of it being common between all the Unixes and it being like reliable.
I would usually guess that i3 probably is like that because it's like it doesn't have title bars. It literally looks like a terminal window that's sectioned off. I mean, you can run video in it.
This has all that stuff, but it's not the heavy weights. If you ever see videos of like NextOS, that basically is exactly how this looks. It's got the the triangles for your scroll bars and the big it's all beveled and stuff. It's a different look. So anyway, I'm sitting here trying to decide what's going to be my next desktop as far as that. I ended up going back on Enlightenment. I've always liked it. I've always played with it over the years. Almost anybody I know in the Linux world is aware of Enlightenment. They play with it, they touch it, they do something with Enlightenment, something else. I don't know anybody who's run Enlightenment like day in, day out. Their daily driver being Enlightenment. You do it? We'll get to you in a second. Because I'll ask you which version, but we'll do that closer to the end because there's a weird thing with the Enlightenment world over there. My interest more with regard to Enlightenment is the Enlightenment Foundation library, so we'll kind of get to that further on in the presentation as far as that. EFL was designed for Enlightenment. It does have potential for use on mobile. It is being used right now by Tizen. EFL is used by both E and Tizen, but it's not the exact same thing as Tizen. Tizen's version of EFL is heavily modified, although there are a lot of similarities. I'm hoping that applications that I'm coding right now, something like that they can run on both one day. That way, instead of having an Android application and a Linux application, I have a application.
Is Samsung supporting everything? Is Samsung supporting?
Yeah, I'll get that in a second. Yeah. Some of the interesting things about Enlightenment as far as environment is there are ways to do native effects that are not possible at all with GTK or Qt without actually coding stuff, and I'll get into some of that in a bit. There is QML now with Qt, but as far as I know, the only thing that's really doing anything animation type stuff with Qt is SEDM, the login manager, and I don't think it's doing it a lot for like animated type effects. I think it's more for like minimal scrolling or some other stuff like that. I haven't really looked at QML, so I can't really comment on what it all can and can't do. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have the equivalence of some of the stuff that can be done here, as I'll get to later on some of the terms. Some of the stuff that already exists right now for Enlightenment are some really cool applications. Terminology is the best terminal emulator I've ever come across. It has built-in animations. That is a terminal that you can use with full animations on any desktop.
What do you mean terminal with animation? With
Animations. Let's stop and show you. Okay. So let's bring terminology over here a little bit. Notice how this is flashing here real quick. Which you can't really see because I changed the color to purple. It actually has a flare shadow that goes out from it. It's got a fade effect. Looks like.
Yeah, it's got, hey.
See that menu that just came in there?
Also, if you just hit like,
You're starting to see how now the desktop is more animated as far as that goes. Now, for example, this thing right here is not done via code. The way that you just saw this thing come out and collapse, that is not done via code. That is one of the things that other desktops cannot do. And I'll get into how it does that as far as here in a second. I'm trying to switch. I'm running a modified theme that I've tweaked because I like purple more than blue, and the default Enlightenment stuff is all blue. But I'm going to throw you off a little bit. So let me switch back over to default here and see if you can see this a little bit better. Can y'all see the fading there a little bit? Let me do a little trick here. So you can, I'm not on Enlightenment, I'm on KDE. I'll show you more about this when I get on KDE or whatever. But for example, if I hit the backspace button, and I can't show it to you here right now because I'm not in Enlightenment, but there's title bar animations too in Enlightenment. So there are a lot of different things, and there could be a lot more done in this. I mean, I could have like the effect like that. You could have firing off other effects like that doing different things for different functions. Other things like if I do things like this and I scroll around, it's got a nice little thing there. You can't really see it, but you see this little red thing is flashing there? There's a lot of little visual, and there's very subtle animations, but there's a lot of little visual indicators that just help you with various things more. So if I drew this and say I need to change it, I got that little red thing, I can go there and grab it and kind of move it again. And if you see it, that red thing's flashing when I'm over it. It's not a static type thing. Other cool things are like, if I can do it right here properly, it should give me a preview of this image. I'm not doing this right.
Actually, have 20 click.
Huh?
You have 20 click.
No, I think it should, well, it's not giving me, on a lot of images, it'll give you a preview of the image or a preview of the URL. Like if somebody sends me a link and a file or something like that, I can just view it within it. I'll have to show you a little more. I'll show you more of this when I get determined into Enlightenment later on. While I'm here though, this is KWin. So this is KWin's wobbly windows, for example. I think I still have the mouse on my screen. And if it does it here, that's the cube desktop. And it'll do that on any hardware.
And this is comp biz, right?
This is not comp biz, this is KWin.
Right.
And like I said, the thing about KWin that's nice is this is the native window manager for KDE. Bring a second, I'll show you that real fast. And this is honestly part of the only reason why I've even kept KDE on here is because of this presentation. Once this is done, it's probably going to be gone. Let's go to our... And as you can tell, I go with a darker theme here myself. So if I come in here, it's under your desktop effects. All these effects that you see right here, these are all native. These are comp-biz-like effects, essentially Magic Genie, translucency. Like if I shrink this, I'll get a little that thing. That's the Magic Genie thing. All the effects you see are all native to KWin. So again, that's why I will say that KWin, with regard to KDE, is the absolute best window manager as far as a standalone window manager that does nothing else. It's KWin. We'll get to Enlightenment a little bit later because it's a kind of confusing thing as far as what it technically is. And I think the other thing that I still like on KDE too, that I'm hoping to, two things I really want to see on Enlightenment that I can't do right now that I really want are the wobbly windows. And as you see, when I clicked on this window, it became transparent. Those are like the two main things that I really want to have done on Enlightenment that I can't do right now. Enlightenment, like KWin, is a native compositor, so it doesn't rely on another comp-biz or something like that for the different effects. The older ones did, so that's kind of why some of those tools stuck around. Alright, so where are we at? Correct. Left there, up there, we're on Enlightenment. Okay, so there's other cool things. I'll show you ePhoto here in a little bit. EPM, what you can see, is pretty cool. It's like a Kodi-like thing. You know what Kodi is? It does like streaming media, audio, video, all kinds of stuff like that. It's like a media center. It's designed for the 10-foot display. So if you, and it actually comes like with a session login. I haven't gotten working yet, but essentially you can log into EPMC, and that will be your only interface. Designed for like a TV or a tablet or something like that. Like I said, 10-foot interfaces to big interfaces. If you're not sure what that is, we'll look it up online or something like that later. So what is it? I forgot to start. Enlightenment has an interesting history. It was written by an author. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. My son pronounced it. Call it Rascal. It's the English way. Rascal, what do you like on GTK? He worked for Red Hat initially actually on GTK. before he started with creating Enlightenment. An interesting thing about Enlightenment, it was the original window manager of GNOME. So unlike a lot of things, Enlightenment is both a window manager and a desktop. Kind of confusing as far as that, but it is unique in that. It supports both Wayland and X, and that's kind of a controversial thing right now. They really want to ditch X and move towards Wayland. Although, you know, Thomson was, I don't see X going anywhere anytime soon. And Wayland still has a lot of features to come that, until those features come, I don't see a lot of people being able, I can't run it. This presentation, I couldn't do on Wayland. It doesn't support multiple displays, and it doesn't support displays of different resolutions. So there's some major things that it doesn't work on that a lot of people need. But when you talk about something like a phone or a tablet or something like that, you're only going to have one display, it's perfect. So that's kind of why a lot of people are going that direction for certain things. Do I recommend anybody here runs E other than Travis? No. Unless you really want to, I mean, the way I looked at E is kind of like with Gen 2. If you have a bad experience with Gen 2, you didn't put enough effort into it. So whatever your experience is with E is based on how much time you put into it. I'll kind of get to those aspects of it here in a little bit as far as that. Why I don't recommend it. For me, it's stable. I really haven't had stability problems. I see a variety of strange instability problems, and I can't really say I see a lot of other things. So because of those aspects, I can't push people towards something that I think is semi-unstable. It may be rock solid for you. I don't know. But I've seen a little bit of that, so I just want to throw that out there in case. I don't want to tell you like this is the most rock solid desktop. If you're running to crash, like screw this guy. I'm telling you right now, it's not stable. If you're running this rock solid, I was wrong. I'll take that all day long. The community is more developer focused than user focused. This is very much like Gen 2. Great community, don't get me wrong. Raster, I've had conversations with him directly. He works for Samsung. He is the original author of Enlightenment in EFL. Everybody knocked IRC years ago, but that again is the beauty of IRC. 2-3 months ago, I didn't know this guy. I didn't know any of these guys. I go on IRC, I have conversations, now meeting people throughout the world and interacting with very poor people. I've probably interacted with almost every one of the core developers and probably at one time or another pissed every one of them off. I think I've made amends with most of them. But it kind of goes back to what I was saying. You cannot read something online and say, I know how this guy is. They're never the same. I come off very different in person than I do online. So that always makes me laugh. People say I don't have communication skills, that may be online, maybe their opinion, but you also have a lot of things with regard to written text. We have different cultures. We phrase things differently in English than some other countries may. So they may interpret the same words completely differently. When you get into non-native English speakers, it gets even more complicated. So you can offend somebody not even knowing that you did. So it's just one of those things. But I'll take blame for whatever I've done to piss anybody off in that regard. But they are kind of a community with some things where they hold their opinions very strong. They're focused more on their experience for themselves. And that's why I was saying before that if you have a bad experience with Enlightenment, it's kind of more your fault than their fault because they're kind of more worried about them than you. So you have to be worried about your own experience as a user. Hopefully that'll change, but it is kind of more inward focusing. And I think me personally, that explains why I know there's been a lot of native applications in the EFL, why it's not a more popular desktop. If whatever you do, if you do it for users, you're going to have a bigger community than if you do it for yourself. There is tons and tons of excellent niche software out there nobody runs. Gen 2 is kind of slowly becoming one of those. The problem with those type of things, if you don't care for your users and you think the developers are more important than your users, you hurt your community, want to help your community. And I really think that's kind of what's happened with Enlightenment over the years. They're great people. I do not want to insult anybody. I'm not insulting their code, their work, any of those type of things. It's great. But they have strong opinions. They are passionate about what they do, and absolutely don't. That's why they're doing it for free. Before nobody can want to get money or whatnot. So, and even some of the stuff with regards to Enlightenment, and I'll get into what it's later on. Like Samsung does sponsor, they're not sponsoring Enlightenment. They're sponsoring EFL. They're sponsoring Thomson. So these guys are working on other stuff. They're really doing it for their spare time. I mean, the thing that one guy's responsible for the majority of EFL and Enlightenment is kind of impressive in itself. This guy knows how many hours he spent for not getting paid about that stuff. So anyway. There really is a limited selection of applications written in EFL. It's not a desktop I'm going to tell you to run that's going to have every application that you're possibly looking for. It's going to be the complete opposite. You're probably going to end up running what you're running before. If you're running GNOME, you're going to end up running a lot of those same GNOME applications. If you're running KDE or Qt, you're going to run a lot of those same applications. A lot of times people in Enlightenment, for good or bad, you can end up with what we call more of, instead of running the applications from your desktop or your environment, running the best of breed. If you like Analog, if you like Firefox, if you like whatever, you run that versus whatever's being provided to you by your environment. there's nothing against that, but then you start getting into the theming aspect, you start not looking the same. If you change colors of one thing, colors of other things don't change. Let me give you a quick example. That's what, OpenOffice looks in here right now because it's in GTK, and I got rid of my PDE theme for GTK because in Enlightenment, I have Enlightenment taking over the theme for GTK. You can't really switch back and forth. So either Qt overrides GTK's theme or Enlightenment overrides GTK's theme, but you can't really swap things around all the time. You kind of can, but you have to start replacing your RC files and theme files and your user directory. It gets kind of kludgy in that sense. So most of the time you're not going to do that, but most people are popping around back and forth. But that's the reason why you run applications from a given toolkit if you want them all to look the same. You change colors, you change widgets, you have scroll bars that look the same, those type of things. So, and I can understand that from a user perspective point of view. Now, interesting enough, Java has always had a different look, and a lot of people don't like Java because of that reason. Being a Java guy for a long time, I went and did some research about that a while back. Microsoft had an interesting approach on that word, but I'm a Microsoft fan. But their approach to that is they made their user interfaces look different so that you knew what you were using. If you were using Windows Media Player, you could tell the difference visually from that from Office or from Word, or just stuff like that. So that may not still be the way, but that was how things, I guess, kind of were at that point. Let's see here, where are we at? Okay, so we're back to the problems here. That's the community, one of the applications. A fair amount of the applications that do exist, like EPYMC, they're written in Python. That's not a bad thing, but me personally, I like native applications. I hate Python. One of the projects I'm kind of working on right now is called ePrior. It's a text editor. There is another text editor out there called ePad, but ePad's in Python, ePrior's in C. I'd rather run native C. There's a variety of different usability issues, and I say in a lot of ways it kind of lacks some refinement for the end user. It's not really easily modified by the end user. It is highly customizable, more so than almost any of the other ones, but it's done in a very complex way. You have to do it via EDJE, and it's a very complex thing, but coding is complex as well. EDJ is not as complex as coding, but it is in a sense kind of like coding. A lot of your files are either configs, .cft or .edj files, and they're binary. So in a Linux world or in a Unix world where you got to go and export a text file to make a change, you're not doing that in Enlightenment. Enlightenment is a binary thing. Now we're not talking closed source, but we're talking binaries for things. So basically if you want to edit like a config file, you're going to use a particular command called beat, which beat is not using beat. It's going to fire up and use whatever your text editor is, whether it's Nano, Pico, Emacs, Beat, whatever. And it'll allow you to edit that file. Then when you go to save it, it spits back out a binary. So in that sense, you don't have much to worry about. Now, EDJE and EDJ files is a bit more complex. We'll get to that here in a little bit. One of the things that I ran into recently that I personally like is just an example of a usability issue, and I opened a bug on this. There's no recently open file menu list. So if you go to the file navigator, open the file, close it, and then you want to open that file again, you've got to go back to find it again. You don't have like a menu, recently open files. Minor things, but just little things that you kind of get accustomed to and using on a lot of different desktops. There's interesting file association. Sometimes if you open up a file with the wrong program, the next time you click on it, it stays that way. And it's kind of annoying because you keep those associations with things it should know, like clicking on a folder. It should know to open that with the file manager. Sometimes I have it opening up with the photo application, just because it should know in the sense the photo application never opened up that way. But kind of it's just little things that I don't mind, but it gets kind of interesting for users. You can right click and change that, but the problem that I found more than anything else is trying to get that out of there. I can right click and change the program to the default program again, but that secondary program I can't remove easily. It's like there is some settings I gotta go find that in. So another thing that was really unfortunate that I'm having all kinds of conversations about, and because I started resurrecting one of them, there's a lot more interest recently than there was, because there's an interesting phenomenon in the world of use of open source. Nobody cares about something until you do. As soon as you care about something that people just neglected flat out, all of a sudden they give a shit now. It's just one of those funny things, and I don't understand that. So don't care about stuff that other people will. So I discovered there's no login manager. Now you've heard of Entrance probably. Entrance was a login manager for Enlightenment. People have probably seen it over here. Just had its own little Wikipedia page, but it got abandoned a couple years back. The entrance that I used when I experimented with Enlightenment years ago is not this entrance. I have no idea what happened to it. I can't find the code. I'm asking around to try to find the code. A French developer picked up, I guess he was working on another project called Elsa. He decided at one point to rename Elsa into Entrance, so the current Entrance code base is what was Elsa, but I don't know if it was ever released. I don't know if it was ever finished. When I went to try to use it, it had a ton of bugs, and I kind of ended up taking it over since then. There is a login manager called Spawna/Andy, and I really wish the developer had made that kind of one. It's kind of the equivalent that you can say of like LightDM, where Spawny is the back end and Anna is the GUI front end. But I think it would have been better if it was one name with like a server and a client. Like Spawny client, Spawny server, or like what LightDM does. They have like LightDM, the base thing, and you have LightDM GTK, LightDM Qt, LightDM FLTK, or DFL, or whatever the other interfaces to that thing. That's a little bit more. This is one thing that drives me nuts. This is an EFL developer, part of the Enlightenment community, works for Samsung, but the community does not want to adopt Spawna Andy for Enlightenment. So they're talking about developing some other thing, which is wonderful and great, but it doesn't exist right now. And I don't know when it will exist. It may be tied to Wayland or whatnot. I still think the login manager needs to exist, so I resurrected Entrance. I was trying to log in with it a little bit ago, but the version I have on this thing is kind of buggy. And I don't have to show you on that one, so we'll get that a little bit later. Entrance still basically is a big pile, but hopefully in a little bit it'll be better. One of the things I was having problems with coming here tonight, which is partly why I'm doing a presentation on KDE for Enlightenment instead of being on Enlightenment for Enlightenment, is that it does some really funky stuff with multiple desktops and big desktops. It kept wanting to treat the desktop as one. And like right now in Open Office, I have it outputting the slides to that, but I have a different view over here. It would not do that for me. Anytime I was trying to output, it was giving me my view on the main monitor, but it was putting nothing on the other one. And as I tried doing other stuff, it got worse. When I tried making the setting like to display on both monitors, it basically took this, I don't want to walk in front of that, but it put it halfway over there. So if you can imagine this thing being halfway in the screen and half the thing off the screen, it sucked really bad. I assume I could have done it if I clone the desktop, so basically you're looking at the same thing I'm looking at, but that kind of screws up presentation type stuff in that regards. I didn't get a chance to make notes, but I had to look at the notes here versus the slides. So that was a really unfortunate thing that I discovered, like literally as I'm walking out the door to do this. So I've got to go back and kind of discuss that whole thing. And it does some other really, really weird stuff that I've never seen any other desktop do. When I have two monitors, I get a nice desktop -1 folder, which is essentially another desktop folder in addition to my regular desktop folder. So if I put icons and stuff in that thing, it shows up on the other screen. That's weird to me. I've never seen that. Usually they treat the desktop as one folder. So whatever's in one is on the other. There are just some really strange things that I haven't experienced in a lot of other environments. And again, really back to I think they're just general usability issues that may just be different, strange for a lot of people. The distribution support for Enlightenment can vary heavily. There's a couple of distributions I'll tell you if you really want to run Enlightenment, which ones you can use later on, but that is the other reason why I say it's kind of hard as far as that aspect. I don't think any distro really gets behind it says running. Most of them are probably supporting something else a little bit better. So why the hell am I using E? Well, why are you running E? Personally, I'm a madman. I run Gentoo, I run SysLinux, everybody in the open source world hates me. In Gentoo I can say hi and I'll get banned for like a month or some crap like that. So, don't follow me in that regard. No. But for real, the main reason it's come down to, in a sense here, is it's not about E, it's about EFL. EFL, from what I feel, I looked at GTK, Qt, and the other ones that exist, I don't really consider as mainstream, FLTK, WF, a bunch of other ones. It uses very limited resources. I think it's the most lightweight of them all. It's got native animations that are not possible via the other ones. And the animations, some of them can be done via code, but they're mostly done via EDJE. I'll get that here in a bit. I believe it has the greatest potential right now on mobile and Internet of Things devices. In my opinion, this is my goal, this is my interest in it, is I believe it has the potential long-term to run the same application everything. So instead of having different programs on your phone, different programs on your TV, whatever, you can run the same program on everything using the same library. I put like, honestly, I love Java, I love Linux, but I have this growing dislike for Android. As I was discussing kind of earlier, Linux back in the day was the type of thing, somebody's pulling out a machine, you put Linux on it and it rocks. It ran great. But now, Android, when I bought my S7, it was the worst one I've ever bought in my life. It's got probably some of the most impressive hardware, but I can pull out my old phones and it runs just as good. So it's like a Windows thing. They keep blowing the hell out of the operating system, slowing it down, making you require more hardware. I just think the whole thing has gotten ridiculous. My phone uses more RAM than my desktop does. That makes no sense to me. I agree. They're just stuff that just does not make sense. But they don't want to close applications on it. They want to keep them running all the time. They don't want to use a real DHCP client. There's this thing thing right now with Google where Google follows standards to the T, and if something doesn't work, well, it's not standards compliant. So guess what? IHC, I don't even can't pronounce this thing. You know, the DHCPD by IHC or whatever, the Internet Software Consortium, the global standard for DHCP servers is not compatible with Android. And Android, you know, for some, and they've driven the corporate world to Apple because you can't do things like UID6 addresses, which to me, a UID6 address is great. For companies, you want to use those internally as much as you possibly can and ensure your data is never going to make it on the internet. Because the UID address will never translate. So those things, the entire purpose of that. But they don't want you to be able to statically hand those out to things. So there's just a lot of things in Android that I'm at a point right now where these things were never a problem in Linux, but they're a problem in Android. And the fact that my stupid S7 every 7 days or something like that is, you should restart your phone. My phone is running Linux. I've had servers run for 5 to 6 years straight without any reboots. Why the hell would I need to reboot my phone?
The thing too I hate most about Android is that, say like Copperhead, the most secure Android arguably distro, will only run on Google Pixel and Nexus devices. You cannot, I mean, I've emailed the developers to see, but I don't know of any way to build it for any other phone.
Well, and that goes into a lot of other things too. Google, as open as you think Android is, I really haven't gotten to the stage of it myself, but I think, from what I understand, the boot aspect of Android is very much locked down to where, say you have an Android device and you just want to put Linux on it, it's a freaking nightmare. You are not easily going to be able to swap out and put a different kernel on there just to boot something different and use that hardware for something else.
Yeah.
It's just a terrible ecosystem, and I
Proprietary firmware.
don't know. I don't know if my next phone will be Android. I don't even know what to say about buying an Apple phone. And BlackBerry is I don't know where, Windows.
BlackBerry.
Maybe Nokia? Nokia, you know,
You can play Snake on it.
we get to Nokia here. So anyway, so EFL Enlightenment is one of the lightest weight, less resource intensive, with the most features and native effects. And it's also one of the least used, least unpopular. Why? And I go back to the community. I think if developers are focusing on themselves and not focusing on end users, you don't attract as many people, and it's a cyclical thing. The less people come, the less popular it is, and it carries on that way. So hopefully they'll start being a little more user focused, and maybe 2017, 2018, we'll start to see Enlightenment rising forward, and we'll see what happens from there. So let's take a side step real quick and say, what other stuff has potential for mobile? Well, I'm going to stop and say this first. Wait, other stuff has potential for mobile? Does it really? I don't know. Most user interfaces are GTK Plus or Qt. There are other toolkits, but those are the main ones that have mobile initiatives usage. I don't really know of any other that has potential or even has initiatives right now under mobile. Do you guys know of anything?
Just QT, or QT, sorry.
Yeah, like I said, GTK and Qt have a mobile. Like there's FLTK, I don't think has any initiatives to go in a mobile apps. It's the other lightweight toolkit type thing, but I don't think it has any interest in mobile or anybody's using it for that purpose, or any FLTK apps. I only know about FLTK because I'm making an interface for GPU, for pin entry for GPG, for like GPU encryption. And it had GTK and Qt interfaces, and one of the interfaces that beat me getting into the source was an FLTK interface. So I recently learned about FLTK because of that. So I couldn't tell you anything else about it. So I don't see that going anywhere on mobile as far as that. But let's talk about GTK and Qt real quick. What about GTK Plus for mobile? Well, GTK is coded in C, which is kind of good. It's got a single GPL license. The problem with GPL is it's great for us, but it really isn't good for companies. Companies really try to avoid the GPL. I believe that's why Sony chose to go with the BSD for the PlayStation 4 versus Linux that was on the PlayStation 3, because they have an MIT license versus a GPL license. MIT kind of gives you the choice to modify the code freely, but if you want to keep your modifications to yourself and sell those modifications and make money off them, go right ahead. So it's a bit more open for people to do stuff with your code to make money off it. Some people don't like it for that reason. That's why the GPL exists. I wrote this code, I spent that time on it. I don't want you changing it, not getting it back and making money on it. So it makes sense, but again, we talk about device manufacturers, they want to make money. They're not trying to get out code, get out anything, especially not their competition. There is, I don't know what the hell that's pronounced, you can pronounce it, the No Mobile Embedded Initiative called, I don't know. I've never seen this on any devices. Y'all talk about one laptop per child, that seems to be the most popular device that is running GTK on some sort of limited device. But I don't even know if I consider one laptop per child a mobile device. That's just kind of like a slimmed down laptop. I don't really consider that necessarily a tablet. There is OpenMoto, I know that on nothing. and some ancient Nokia phones that nobody's using.
HackerF,
What's that?
OpenMoko, HackerF,
What's that?
software-defined radio.
Right, but initially OpenMoko was for like, to be a phone, like open operating system for a phone.
Yeah.
But I don't know of any, I'm just saying, I don't know of any devices you can buy with it. Does it come with that on that? Or you can put it on that?
It's HackerF, software-defined radio. They're using OpenMoko on it for the firmware.
Right, but not for like a UI or anything like this, like that, stuff like that. Yeah, so what I'm saying more in the sense of like devices that, other than that, mainstream type devices, phones, tablets, TVs, stuff like that that mass consumers are typically going to buy. Of course, Travis, you got everything like that. But yeah, they have on the Wikipedia page for OpenMoko, they have some weird device that shows off like a UI for that. So the back end's probably fine. I don't know anything about that aspect of it as far as that. The only thing I know about it as far as that is for the graphic type interface.
They might use OpenMoko on the
But
quarterback.
my point behind this is we're talking about GTK on OpenMoko. There's no GTK on that.
I don't know.
Well, we're saying you don't have an interface for that, right?
Well, you have a quarterback, so it doesn't actually give me an interface.
Does it give you graphics?
Yes, very limited. Think old cell phone.
That may be GTK. I mean, if it's rendering something on screen and it's using OpenMoko, it probably is using GTK as a toolkit on it.
Find out in a second.
Wow.
Old school 60.
I would bet money that GTK. I would bet money. Now understand that GTK looks however it does based on the theme like anything. These things have no native look to themselves. The look of QT or GTK or EFL stuff comes from something other than code. It's part of the design aspect because the coders don't want to be bound to a particular look. So by having it be themable, they can make it look completely different. So you can have a ancient interface like that based on the theme alone. So I would probably bet that. I could be wrong, but I think that's running GTK. So we have one other device we can add to the list. But in reality, GTK is really heavy. It's got a hard time running on limited resources, and it's got performance issues as well on limited devices. I really don't think it's a lightweight contender. Other than certain things, and you can see the interface it's using on that, it's not graphics heavy. It probably had to ditch anything graphics heavy to be able to accommodate whatever hardware it's using on that.
Yeah. Most graphic heavy thing that's on it is the spectrum analyzer. Waterfall effects.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is for them to put more enhanced graphics that would be more aesthetically pleasing to us, it would require more hardware inside there.
Yeah.
And it would drive the cost of it up, and they would rather just, you probably don't care about that, but people buying it probably don't care about that. The manufacturer knows that, so they're like, screw it. But again, other than that, very few things, you're not going to see GTK on a lot of other stuff. I could be wrong, speak up, Travis spoke up, nobody else. If you have another device with GTK on it,
Oh God, I'm that guy.
hey, I'm that guy in the same thing, so it's good.
Hey, high five.
Hey, I dish it out, I can take it. I got my wheelbarrow back there. Let me know. Shovel it on in, buddy. Okay, so now we go to QT for mobile. QT is coded in C++. QT has one of those things that I absolutely hate, like MySQL. That's dual licensed. That means depending on what you use it for, you may or may not have to pay somebody to use it. So if you're going to put it in a product, you can almost damn well bet you're going to have to license it for that purpose.
Something.
You are not going to, well, that's a whole other story. Was. See, QT has been bought and sold several times. At one point, Nokia had bought QT from Trolltech, from some other ones. It's evolved a bunch of times, but Nokia ditched it. Nokia now has a partnership with Microsoft, and they're out building something else. I think both Nokia and Microsoft are trying to do something in the mobile market. But
Microsoft is no longer working with Nokia.
poor Nokia. I mean, like seriously, if you think back 15 years ago, Nokia phones dominated the market. Pre-smartphones, they were out there in a lot. And like there was that movie, The Saint or whatever, we had that like silver one, like flipped open or whatever. Like that's like, I remember some movies that prototype ones. Yeah, it was just interesting one. I don't know, I feel so bad for Nokia. And I even saw some of their buildings out in California, which aren't people.
What they need to do is they need to return back to the M700 and just upgrade the hardware on it, and we'd be very happy.
I think in the 900
Okay,
too.
smartphone. The M700, that was the one that you could actually just run a full one when it stepped off.
If you look on YouTube, the actual author of Enlightenment, he put E on the 900. on the N900. So if you look on YouTube and see that video, that is the offer of Enlightenment who did that. So I don't think you're going to go out there and pull that off yourself. I'm curious about how some of that stuff was pulled off, but anyway, so Nokia, all that kind of stuff, it came from Finland. QT is now owned by a company called Nigia. Have you ever heard of Nigia? Okay, we'll leave it at that. Plasma Mobile, it's even funnier. Not to really laugh too much. It's sponsored by a company called Blue Systems. Maybe you ever heard of Blue Systems? European initiative. Don't say that on one of the EIRC channels. There's a very nice guy in there who does work for Blue Systems. So if he sees this maybe a little mad, maybe it's alright. Anybody ever heard of JaxLUG? Put your hand down, guys. Anybody else ever heard of JaxLUG?
I've heard of JaxLUG,
I know you have. You got that thing, man.
Believe it or not, yeah, I heard about this at a security conference. I ran into a dude that was from the UK, and he was part of the dev team for that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's awesome.
For whatever reason, GTK seems to kind of be like a US initiative. QT is really popular in Europe, for whatever reason. And KDE and Gnome, those whole communities kind of stem in that kind of regard too. So you're going to see most of the KDE developers being in Europe. Gnome and GTK are all over the world, but it seems like a lot of the Gnome companies and supporters like that are here in the United States, companies we know of. Red Hat, for example. Red Hat is the main driving force behind GTK and a lot of those things, so they are Gnome. Gnome is a foundation run by a lot of sponsorship, but if you look at actually who's really committing, a lot of it's Red Hat developers. So, I mean, Red Hat's paying those people to work on that stuff, in addition to their contributions to that type of thing. Anyway, JaxLUG is a manufacturer of smartphones. They're essentially Nokia in Finland, but they're not nowhere near as big as Nokia is. They are developing an operating system called Sailfish OS. It's a Qt-based mobile operating system and tablet. It's developed by JaxLUG, and it's a fork of MeeGo. And MeeGo used Qt, which became Mir, and now they forked Mir into Sailfish. Mir is the community version of MeeGo. I don't know what the hell's going on with that. MeeGo was like a Linux Foundation project. It got kicked out of Linux Foundation or something like that.
And 900 MeeGo died.
It did, because the Linux Foundation got rid of it basically. They said we're done with it. But like I said, that's what it forked into Mir, and somehow they're modifying Mir or something like that to basically to be adopted back by the Linux Foundation once they meet the MeeGo requirements. I don't know, it's confusing as hell. I'm not trying to go down that path in their life. Anybody ever heard Qt Extended? Or Qtopia? There was a wonderful device back in the day, and I actually owned one of these things called a Sharpsaurus.
Oh, I got one.
I remember that.
Even before that, let's stop for a second. Pre-pause. Back in like the 80s, I used to play with these things called Sharp Wizards. They were really cool. They were like a calculator. You could flip them over. They had a screen. They had a keyboard. You could put your contacts in them, phones in them. You could even look it up with a little printer and print stuff out. They were really picture thing. I love the Wizards. So Sharp has had interest in these like embedded little devices for a while. Before Paul's ever came around any of that type of stuff. When they developed the Sharpsaurus, it basically is a smartphone. Yeah. But it's not smart. It's a phone pilot basically. It has a touch interface. It's got, if you looked at it right now, it would look
the wireless thing on the top of it.
Yeah, it would look a lot like what we think of as a smartphone essentially. You know, it was probably at the wrong time essentially, I would say, because Linux was kind of coming along popular, but there wasn't a massive Linux base right now, so people weren't running out looking to buy Linux devices like they are now. So something like that hit the market now would probably have, a chance, but now it would have to be a cell phone because that's what we're used to. Try coming out with another iPod. That's never going to work because you want a whole iPhone with all the capabilities in it, or the iPod on the screen or whatever that you can't watch, video or something like that on it. Anyway. So that essentially was, Qt said it was Qtopia. Qtopia was up on the Sharpsaurus, but it really never had a feature, sadly. It was a great little embedded operating system. It had great performance compared to Android and other stuff like that. It was great. It didn't go anywhere. It sucks. But with regard to Qt, it seems like it's got a contender. It's got some potential, but I really doubt it's going to be on device near us anytime soon. JaxLUG is a manufacturer of UK. I don't know if they have any trade agreement with the United States. I don't know if they can ever get a phone into our country. I don't even know if we can bring one in easily without having to know somebody over there to buy and ship it to us.
Yeah, that was the thing. I was like looking at it afterwards. I was like, okay, so it's really more heavily focused towards Linux.
Yeah.
And that, I was like, cool, I'd like to actually get one of those. Oh, I can't get it shipped here.
Yeah,
Okay.
and even if you could get it here, it probably won't work on any of our cellular
wouldn't work on our
bands.
cellular.
Yeah, because they have different frequencies. So even if it's the same GSM, they're working on different frequencies and whatnot. It's all screwy smart. That you pretty much forget about all that. So.
And I really wanted one of those too. I was like, oh, it's so cool, but.
Yeah. And again, I'm not knocking. let me say this too. I'm not knocking QT, I'm not knocking GTK, I'm not knocking Jola or Sailfish or any of those type of things. I'm just being practical. We're here in the United States. I want to be able to next year to go out and buy a product that has this on it. I bought a sharp source years ago. I don't see myself being able to buy another QT device, and I don't think I'm going to again. Because I've been let down once before. I don't want to be let down again. I don't think I have any hope for the next couple of years other than a one laptop or a child or what you got. Go out and buy something with GTK on it that I can use for most things. So those things are pretty much out the window. So now we've come full circle back around to EFL. What is EFL? EFL is like GTK or QT. It's the Enlightenment Foundation libraries. It's a graphic toolkit that Enlightenment was built with. It used to consist of a bunch of different things, and it still does. Those were packaged separately, and it was someone with package 15 or Nightmare, kind of like what KDE is with all these different pieces. But it all is stuck into one big thing right now called EFL, which is nice. Because it's got one thing that comes out and updates, you update that one thing, and you get all the different updates and all that kind of stuff in there. And I'll go over some of those parts. Most of those things you don't need to know about. The main thing I can speak a little bit about is the elementary, because I won't go into that with some of the other stuff. Elementary is kind of like a higher level programming interface so when you're coding stuff for EFL or for Enlightenment, you don't have to code as much, so to speak. They made a nice user-friendly layer for like widgets. If you want to add a button, you'll use elementary to add a button. Or a widget, versus having to kind of assemble one yourself in code, using the other stuff. And I'll get into some of the other ones again here a little. EFL's alternative, GTK+, QT, FLTK, and all the other graphic toolkits. It's coded in C. It's been around for a stupid long time, since about 1999, something like that, or whenever the main author stopped working on GTK and left Red Hat, I guess, and started working on his own project. It is sponsored by Samsung as around 2012. They do employ most support developers, but they're not employed for our purposes. They're employed for their purposes, which is Tizen. So they do work a lot on EFL. A lot of that stuff starts in EFL and goes up to Tizen, but a lot of Tizen stuff doesn't always come back to EFL as far as that. But they're paid to work on Tizen, not E. So their primary focus is going to be other stuff, not always E. So E kind of gets called to the wayside.
No, we do get some of the benefits.
Yeah, look, anyways, EFL will be fixed. Now, if they're working on Tizen, they find a bug in EFL, they will fix that in EFL directly. If it's a bug in Enlightenment, it's secondary because that's kind of their spare time they work on Enlightenment, because they run Enlightenment. So that's kind of where that aspect of it comes from. The EFL apps are not bound to E, so just like GTK or QT, if you like terminology, ePhoto, any of the stuff, you can run that without having to switch your desktop, so you don't have to do those other things. So now we're going to get into some of the pieces. Like I said, there's the different pieces back there that are in EFL. We're going to cover a couple of the pieces that are important to you in EFL. One of those things is EDJE. EDJE is very powerful. It's an extremely complex graphic library and graphic design and layout library. When I was showing you those things in terminology, get back to this, that's EDJ. This, how that menu just came out, is also EDJE. That is the things that it does in those regards. I'll show you how it does in here a little bit. But those things are not done in what we consider code in that sense in a longer. Okay. It basically literally separates the coding aspect from the user interface aspect. Essentially, when you're making something and using EFL, you don't even want to place stuff somewhere. Like say you want to put a button down in a corner, you don't do that. You just say there's going to be a button here, hand it over to EDJE, and then whoever makes an EDJE file will choose where that button goes. They may want it to slide in, they may want it to slide out, they may want it to be big, they want it to be small. All that stuff is done by EDJE. It's not code, but it is code. It's not a language that you're going to know of, and you're not having to allocate stuff, but it's coding. I mean, you're using syntax, you're using different parameters. You get it wrong, it's not going to work. So it's pretty much coding in that sense. It's a different kind of coding in a sense. Like I was saying, it can be used for the entire layout and appearance of the user interface. You can position stuff in code or do things in code, but you're kind of really not supposed to, because you're supposed to leave that up to the theming aspect for the themes for your E or EFL applications. E has its own theme. Some of the things like terminology, as you saw, I switched its theme to another theme. So you can have a theme for the entire desktop and window manager, or individual applications can have their own theme beyond that. So it can kind of get complex in that regard. And again, the theme may not just be the colors and that kind of thing, maybe positioning things. One theme may put buttons on the left, one theme may put buttons on the right. So you may make different themes so that the user can switch back and forth depending. You may like an analog clock. You may want a digital clock. You make a different theme to switch the clock to those two different looks. It's the same back-end code for the clock, for seconds, time, all that type of stuff, but the looks are different, so you use that in a theme sense. That's all with the JaxLUG. I don't even know how you pronounce that, yes. Looks like you want an acronym for it. But it allows the entire user interface, everything you see on screen, to be customizable. It also provides means for effects that are not possible on other toolkits without coding. You cannot go in and modify a GTK theme and do stuff in a GTK or QT theme and get it to animate and do stuff. It just does not have that capability. If you want to actually do animations in GTK, you're going to have to go code that stuff. And pretty deep probably in the toolkit library. I believe QT is addressing this with QML, but I don't know what all QML can do right now. And I think it's just kind of like a higher level abstraction right now to save you from actually writing like C++. But I don't believe you can do advanced animations in that right now, at least not on the level of what you can do with Enlightenment. And I'll show you some of that stuff here, at least that I've done that I think is kind of cool. And they're very subtle. It starts out as a plain text file with an EDC suffix, but you're going to compile that text file for actual users. It's going to end up as an EDJ file. You use two different commands to do that. You're going to use EDJECC is the compiler, and the decompiler is the same thing with DEC, obviously the decompiler. And it goes back and forth. It's pretty friendly. If somebody has an EDJ file, like a theme you want to mess with and modify, you can run the EDJECC command. It'll decompress that, and it spits out a little build sh, which is a little one-liner script, and you just run that and repacks it back for you. So it's a little complex to edit, it's a little different than other stuff, but they're friendly tools. You just gotta use those things and you're good to go for that type of stuff. An interesting thing about it, because it's binary, you can stuff stuff in there. Now, this is not possible with other themes, because other themes, I have to double check on QT. I know for a fact with Gnome, all their themes are plain text files. So you can't stuff an image in a plain text file. You can't stuff a font in a plain text file. You can't stuff an audio or video file in a plain text file. You can do all that with EDJE. If you don't want a widget to have a background image or a background color, you can set that widget to have a background video. So if you can imagine a button with a video, or any portion of your UI with a video in it, it just gives you some really, almost probably in a sense, too many options to really go nuts with the user interface. And maybe that's why you haven't seen as much innovation with it, because there's just so many possibilities people maybe get lost. You really have to kind of think of a completely new user interface that will fully probably utilize the toolkit to its fullest extent. And that's kind of, for example, like with terminology, that's kind of what the author of that was trying to do. He's trying to bring effects and animations to something old school. Terminals have been around for years, but let's do little things that make them more modern, so to speak.
So yeah, one thing that's kind of funny too is like I've been playing around with the elementary for some GUIs and stuff like that. It's funny that they have all this like super complex stuff, but then they just mark on something simple like a yes/no dialogue widget.
And that's why I go back to the usability aspect.
Yeah.
They seem to be catching up with a lot of things that for something in development for like close to 20 years, you would think it'd be existing by now.
Yeah,
like it would exist a long
dialogue,
time ago. I can't
like,
really explain some of that stuff.
Yeah.
It seems, and I'm not saying anything negative about them, I'm more of a jerk, maybe these guys aren't working that stuff. It seems like they've had a lot of internal breakage and a lot of just changes because they decided to go in a different direction with the design. That's not a bad thing, but it just makes for a horrible user experience. Entrance is a good example. There's no usable login manager right now. They want to talk about how we can make a bitchin' better one, but they're not talking about what do we do right now. And for the ones that are available right now, they're not fully embracing that either. So it's some really weird stuff in that regard. So can you speak to me? I have no idea what I'm
still a very early roadmap.
What's that?
Still pretty early into the roadmap on a lot of those things.
It seems like it, but like I said, I have to go back to it. It's been being developed for so many damn years. Why is it just, and again, I have to go back to it. It's got a small developer community. It's got a small user community. Again, if you don't focus more on making things good, I mean, look at the Ubuntu compared to Debian. Debian's been around for how long? It's great. It's got a lot of great docs, bug reporting, and whatnot. Why did Ubuntu rise in popularity the way it did? Because its focus was only on users. It was all of the end user experience. And they gave a pretty good end user experience, and they got a pretty good baseline. Of course, there's a Canonical, and they're putting money behind it. I used to drive around in California, Palo Alto, using billboards for Ubuntu. There are no billboards in the Bay Area. Like, they're all environmentalists out there. Why are you gonna put a billboard up? It's so ugly. We got trees. Look, those kind of stuff. They make cell phone towers look like trees because they're too ugly. They would freak out in our city. They would not. They lose it. I mean, it's funny. You see fake palm trees where they shouldn't be because it's not a palm tree, it's a cell tower. So So yeah, it's kind of funny with some of that stuff out there. But yeah, I was tripping out. I should have took a picture of it, but it was before I was driving around the phone. And it was really scratchy picture, but it was like in Palo Alto or Sunnyvale. I can't remember where I was at. Anyway, let's see here. There is an IDE or what you see, what you get editor for EDJE called Inventor. It's buggy as hell. I cannot figure out for the life of me how to use it. I'm not saying I'm a genius, but I've used a fair amount of things like Flash and Java and a lot of IDEs that have like drop-in toolkit widget builders up like that. But I was clicking around with this thing for the love of God, I don't know. I'm a text guy. I just revert to edit the files via text. It is helping me understand the specification better and understand what I'm doing and learning it that way. But from a designer standpoint of view, they have to be able to use some sort of graphical thing. I do not see designers learning EDJE at all. Period. And the whole idea is to separate programming from design, let artists do the design. But this thing is so damn complex, I don't see artists coding EDJE. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I was about to say, I actually am just using elementary coding the GUI in a class and then code in the other
Yeah,
class.
I'll get to that. I've done the same thing. I'll show you.
I couldn't figure out Inventor either.
I'll show you both in little code here in a second. So you can kind of see it both ways or whatever. So the problem that I've also seen is there's, like, again, going back to user experience or refinement, a lot of things you would depend on, like Inventor, to go to edit these files, is so buggy you almost don't even want to use it. So it's like screw this, screw E, screw EFL. I don't know. That maybe why there's a lot of people attracted to it because, and it's a series of things. It's not like you're going to have a bug in just one thing. You're probably going to have a bug in a lot of different stuff. So again, that's why I go back to saying I don't recommend you run it, but if you do, there's a lot of nice things about it, but you're going to see a lot of things that isn't that way too. So on to the next thing. Eat. That I can actually kind of pronounce. It's a tiny little library to write binary files, to write arbitrary data such as the binary files and ultimately compress them. Essentially, this is all your configuration files. So all your configuration files are all binary too, which is kind of annoying, but that's how it is. You can grab them, but you can't really easily edit them or whatever. You have to use the beat command to edit these things, but it's convenient. It's a little, in my opinion, it's a little more friendly than EDJE, but again, you have to use EDJE the way that you do because you can't stuff an image into a compressed file via the text editor, so to speak. So this is going to open up the binary file with a text editor, whatever your text editor is configured on your system, lets you edit that thing. As soon as you save it, it spits the binary right back out. So there's no additional steps. So in all reality, the fact that it's editing a binary doesn't really matter to you. Because you're using a text editor to edit it, it's generating the binary for you afterwards, so your process is really no different, other than the command you're using to edit the file just a little bit. And the name is, let me go back real quick. This name has no reason, it stands for nothing. Okay, I don't know why they picked those letters, but it's not an acronym, I don't know how to pronounce it, I don't know why they named it that. This does have a reason, this is a fun lead.
I believe that EDJE is coming from Edge.
Don't say that. The only reason why I say that is because anybody ever heard of Edge? What is Edge? Yeah, is everybody so out of it these days?
Microsoft's browser.
Yes! There's no Internet Explorer anymore. It's Edge now.
Who does to know about Edge? Come on now.
Well, it's also.
You just spoke up.
I don't use it either. Where's the browser?
Sponsored by the internet.
You mean Edge is a browser that downloads Firefox?
Did you have a question? Sorry. Did you have a question?
No, I was just agreeing with him, but he said it sounded like it.
Oh yeah. But that's the problem though, because when I go to do like a Google search and I'm trying to learn this crap, I get a bunch of Microsoft Edge search for the browser.
Yeah, it doesn't help the
It's a pain in the ass, man. I mean, like for everything, like when I type in E for EDJE, I have to also type in Enlightenment desktop or Enlightenment EFL, something to get an additional qualifier so I don't get some crap basically.
Yeah, like elementary.
Don't even get me started on that.
There you search for like elementary tutorials and it's like, here's some good training kits for elementary students. It's like, no, not what I'm looking for. Programming.
There are some elementary projects on GitHub. There's a bitchin' desktop that's coming out right now called Pantheon that's coded in Vala using GTK. Pantheon was designed for, guess what? Elementary OS. It's another one you guys can go and check out too. It's in the GTK family. It's a pretty cool desktop. It's available, I think, right now in ARC. They have the Pantheon desktop package. But Pantheon is really, there's no Wikipedia page for Pantheon. If you try to find information about Pantheon, you end up on elementary OS. So that's essentially where it's coming from. I will stop and say this real quickly about that. They have blazed through stuff. They have a full stack. They have their own email client. They have their full own almost everything. that they've blown out with encoding and following. So I have to give them some credit. Can't say to the quality or the stability of it, any of that stuff, but I have to give them credit. They powered that stuff out really quickly. So maybe that's just following. I don't know anything about following. So anyway, you guys really want to run E? Sure. Yeah. If you do, and again, don't ask me, I'll get that second. You're either run one Arc, Fedora, or Susa. These are the ones that I've seen people in the community running that seem to have pretty good support. Arc's one of those great distributions these days. Fedora is just stupid because of Red Hat. These are probably the two more bleeding edge distributions that are in the binary front. So they're pretty well updated, pretty much have all the latest and greatest stuff. The reason why I also put SUSE on there is because I've actually come across the SUSE package maintainer several times at IRC. He's a very nice guy. He's also made several of the themes for Enlightenment. So I believe Enlightenment is probably very well supported on SUSE, and if you did have a problem, you could probably go find that guy and report a bug to him and probably look to fix it. So that is probably one of the other things about that. Now we get to the kind of more contentious aspects of Enlightenment. Maybe where Travis steps into a little bit. There's another distribution called Bodhi, which is Ubuntu based. That is the only distribution that is Enlightenment distribution. That's all they care about. You're not going to run Qt or GNOME or other desktop and that. You're going to run E on Bodhi. They do have some GDK apps and other applications like that packaged for you. I've actually put other stuff on there because it is using Ubuntu based or whatnot. It's E17 based. They forked E17 to create what they call the Moshka desktop. Moshka desktop. I don't know. You can pronounce it every one. It's not a language class. It has the most apps. Several of the Python apps have come from Bodhi developers. They've also done like a Python Elm extensions thing too, which kind of expanded the elementary thing a little bit in Python. I'd rather kind of see some of that extended in actual elementary C code versus just in Python because some of those features could be used and other stuff like that. Bodhi's got a very friendly community. I've interacted with almost all the different Bodhi developers, stuff like that. If you really want to run E, that is the direction for you to go. But let me back up a little bit here. It's contentious. E17 is a version of Enlightenment. The present version is E21. They are beyond E17. They are not fixing bugs with E17. They really do not want people running E17. They're not having Bodhi as basic distribution around E17. They're not having a corporate Moshka, whatever else called. They are using current EFL. So you're not running an older version of EFL, but they're having to fix some stuff, and there may be some odd issues that you may find yourself in a field where nobody fixes it. Because if Bodhi developers can't fix it, they're going to come back to E or EFL developers, and they may not prioritize it or give a crap out of it at all. And I can't blame them. I mean, it's really two different perspectives. So it's user preference at that point as far as that. You're welcome to use something Gentoo based. If you use Gentoo based, I recommend you use my repo and overlay. I have packaged almost every Enlightenment thing I can come across and find. I started initially with like the main EFL and Enlightenment egos from Gentoo, from the tree, and from the eLive overlay. They both sucked. I improved on both of them, and so my version of my overlay should have improvements on both those. And I do have applications that you're not going to find packaged anywhere else, at least for Gentoo. And like I said, just to restate, any EFL, whether it's in C or Python, that's a usable app, I've tried to package that. There's a few more out there that I can package that I personally don't use. But if you see that and you want it, I'll be happy to package that for you. If you do use something Gentoo based and you're not using my overlay for an E, don't talk to me. I don't want to hear about it. Because I can't do anything for you about those things. I don't want to hear about their problems. You can talk to them, report to them, whatever. I don't know. Now, there is a eLive CD. It's Debian based. It's not really current right now. They have a GoFundMe right now for a 3.0 version. I'm not really clear what happened with that. I've played with this a few times, but I guess there's something if you want to install it, you have to pay to install it. I'm not really sure. Something along those lines, because I was reading their GoFundMe page, and that was part of the reason why they're doing GoFundMe for the 3.0 is to make it free period. It's cool because I think it's the only live CD that you can try that has E on it. They have some different versions. They have the older E17 base that has Compass and all the effects that you guys are probably used to with Enlightenment. When you actually see Enlightenment here in a second, maybe kind of let down thinking it's all these bitching glorious effects, that kind of got dropped. It has all those abilities still natively, it's just, you have to kind of code those again. Like when I showed you this listed K1, essentially all those things have to be recoded again to make all those effects again in Enlightenment. You can't just simply use like the compass and the effects anymore, so to speak. So I think that's part of the reason why E17 has remained around, because I think especially when it comes to people thinking about Enlightenment, they want all the stupid eye candy, and that's essentially where it went with E17.
One thing, I used E17 for almost 2 years under Sabayon, which was one of the first Gentoo
It's still out there, that's what the binary addiction river is.
Yeah, so that's maybe another one that, I mean, they really work.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't know where it's at as far as right now, but like I was saying a second ago, E17's dead. They're on 21. So that's how many major versions back it is. I can't tell you the exact year. It's really strange because E17 was developed for like 10 years or something like that. It was a stupid long time. So it just seems kind of weird you took that long. Everybody knows Enlightenment typically by E17. But it's not E17. Technically, I guess right now it's E21. Because it's at 21.8 or whatever as far as that. So it was a major rewrite, I believe. I know it was a major change. I think it was a fairly big rewrite over the 16 code base as far as that. They did make a fair amount of changes as far as that, and that same thing happened again. And they dropped a lot of, they kind of went a different way with some of the core graphics, how they were being rendered, kind of slimmed down various systems as far as that. So E17 is no longer supported by E or EFL developers. It is supported by Bodhi, but they have forked it to create Motion. So we're talking supported E17 right now, and it's not that, it's really Motion. It's its name right now. But stay away from all that stuff. Well, unless you're going to run Bodhi. And like I said, I got nothing against the Bodhi community, but if you had issues, you made stuff. And then there's the eLive CD, but a lot of the cool eLive CDs tend to be a few versions back. Those being live CDs, they should be a solid environment because it's static. You're going to be running older versions of stuff on the live CD, not anything current. And those things, E17, like I said, has the most high candy with everything with confidence. The same stuff can be done natively in EFL, but it's got to be coded like wobbly windows for Wayland, which one of the developers made a patch for wobbly windows for Wayland, but he didn't want to keep it in EFL, so he kicked it out. I've got that patch. I'm hoping at some point I can apply it to XOR and get away with it, because wobbly windows is something I want back on my list. Okay, now we're almost done here. At the point you guys probably actually care about, the show and tell part, right? So you want to see Enlightenment.
Yeah!
So when we actually, because I can't do my presentation anymore when I go to Enlightenment, so I'm going to wrap this part of it up real quickly, but the things I'm going to show you when we go over Enlightenment is these are projects that I am directly working on. I've kind of taken them over for good or bad, for whatever reason. ePrior was a prototype kind of text editor, just like a gedit, kwrite, any text editor. It was kind of abandoned. The one that people are pretty much using these days is called ePad and Python, but I didn't want to use the Python version, so I'm updating the C version. I'll show you kind of where I'm at with that a bit. In entry, something that there was a version that one of the core developers who worked for Samsung had made an initial EFL port for pin entry and submitted it several months back. I'm not sure he has the time to really follow up on it. I got in touch with him and got him to send me his work. Because I ended up taking the code base in such a substantial different direction, he really didn't want his name included on it. He said, I'll find go ahead and submit it to GHPG and pin entry. And I'm pretty close. They got back to me today with some other little fixes I got to do on it, and that thing's almost done. I'll show you that. I use that a lot. So that's almost adopted. That'll be the first completed EFL contribution that I made that's going to be into another third-party project. I've recently resurrected Entrance, which is the login manager, which I've got somewhat working for me. I can't really get it to work for anybody else yet, and it's still got a ton of bugs, and I don't know if it ever worked. I really pissed off the original author because I didn't really communicate with him. I just came across the code base, I forked it, I started fixing it. I made an announcement on the development list saying, hey, Entrance is alive again, and it was like, what the hell, man? You just took my code. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Nobody's touched it since like 2016, 2015, 2014. It's been
But it's my orphan.
Yeah, so after a discussion, they realized that they really want to make a bitching one that goes in a completely different direction, that they no longer care about that code base on finding electricity. It's just, like I said, you can have a lot of fun in open source communities. You're going to probably piss somebody off, somebody's going to dislike you, don't get discouraged, just take it with a grain of salt and move on. It's just one of those things, you know, there was an article, I got to find the link to it, I'll try to send it to the LUG. It's from a UK, like the Register or something like that. They did a study recently of just how the open source world is the social skills of the open source world, and realized that like 16-10% of the open source world are rude, jerk, buttons basically. That are just like completely unfriendly to each other, that just the first user experience they have with people puts them off, and that just seems to be the open source world. If you can imagine comments on YouTube, that's just what you gotta deal with. Man, your code sucks! And it really did not suck that bad. I mean, I made a comment to, I think, yeah, when I was talking to one of the E developers about moving on from E17 and why Bodhi's no longer using it, I used the word bitch. Man, we got the whole thing ditch is such a derogatory word. Why would you say that? That's so bad, like, man. It's just a slang. I wasn't meaning it in a rude sense. I just meaning y'all kind of moved on from E17.
There's an entire class called
No big deal.
Jax.
Man, he took so much offense to that one word. I'm like, we had a conversation about that. I'm like, this is really a waste of fucking time. Why are we talking about this stupid thing I use? I'm sorry I used ditch. Please forgive me. It's just, there's little stupid stuff like that. So, have thick skin. Alright, well, I'll just come back. So, okay. So, I'll show you the different projects I'm working on. The last one is Eminence. That's kind of just a custom theme. That's the one I switched off of in terminology when I showed you that. Some of the things I've done recently are like animated window borders and menu icons. It starts up stupid fast, and let's just get out of here and I'll show you that stuff. Before I do, though, I'm going to come over here and close everything. And I have no windows open, okay? I got nothing running. I've got that. That's all I have. ADE is just sitting here idle. I can log out and log back in again, but let's see where we're at. Switching keyboards on a laptop sucks. So we're sitting at 578 megabytes of RAM right now. And I guarantee you if I log out and log back in, we're probably going to be sitting at about the same. So let's log out. Because I was having some problems with entrance, I can try to fire it here, but I'll show you that again here at the end. This is SDDM. We're having some problems with entrance. It has some really weird stuff with regard to E, because it won't let E, at least on my laptops, it won't let the, oh, damn it. Yeah. I don't know how many times, this is a good thing. Look how long AD takes to start up. We are waiting. Come on, plasma. Plasma. All right, and now what I just say, let's see where we are at. Look at that, 520. Damn you, KDE. Anyway, I can't tell you how many times I'm working on something, I'm trying to switch from KDE to Enlightenment, and I log out and log back into the desktop I don't want to log back into.
Good question. Is it an SD drive or a regular hard drive?
It doesn't really matter for RAM usage.
Oh, it doesn't? Oh, no, I'm talking about in regards to the speed write capacity, your laptop.
On that laptop, same.
Okay, so I'll take
Now, my next speed drive. That's quick little story here. The last newest spinning hard drive I have was a 1 terabyte hard drive that came in an HP machine. I didn't even use it in that machine because I pulled it out with a solid state drive in there. I used it on a data, I used it like a backup. I was putting some backups of various archives stuff like that on one of my servers on it. Within less than a year, that drive died. And I mean, mechanically failed. I was like, what the? I've never had a hard drive die that soon in my whole life. So like the last spinning drive I had, that's what you're doing to me. I will never buy another one of you again. Thank you.
The only drive ever had die on me.
But I will say this, I don't even know what the hell happened when a solid state drive dies. I'm sure it's going to be part of it.
It's nasty. It goes really quick. Yeah.
See, I don't know what the hell happened here again. We just lost our screen. And it was working really. It's an evening, I guess, now. We're on two different laptops.
So where you said it was multiple screens?
Well, dual screens works for me at my place. Clearly, for whatever reason, it's going to work here, but he may be recording the session. Let me see if I can get it.
It's the curse of the live.
Worst case, let me.
Did you make the appropriate sacrifices and prayers to the demo gods?
Did you sacrifice a hard
Are they not stated?
No, but I'm glad this part is being recorded because this has been not fun. That's what I'm trying to tell you about some of this stuff. It's really Let's try this one more time here. I wish y'all could see this because this thing starts up stupid fast.
You're not going to have enough time to troubleshoot it before it's already out.
I'm already looking at graphics here. Let me see if I can get this going.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can probably already go ahead and start launching apps and stuff. Like for me, it's instant.
Yeah, I mean, like
As soon as I know what the login, I'm ready to start.
One thing I'll turn around and show you as far as directly on the laptop. But again, you can start to see right now what I was saying about don't run E. I use an external monitor on both these laptops at home. I've never had this kind of problem.
Can you use the BIOS switch to switch to that
You just saw SCDM.
Yeah.
As soon as I log into E, it shut off that display. I'm trying to explain that E is strange. It's doing some weird stuff. I work with a lot of environments. It treats a lot of its stuff very differently. When I run my, I've been asked about this for a while, when I run my X-Render script, it causes E to spit out some error, and I've asked about it time and time again, why do I get that error? Nobody can give me an explanation for that. Because it wants, and KDE is no different. KWin records your session. If you have two screens plugged in and you change your settings to a certain way, it's going to record that. And the next time you have that same scenario, it's going to apply that same save session back to it. Eve tries to do some similar stuff like that, and that's what really fights with extenders. So those type of things just really screw each other up big time. Let me see if I can get this going here. See, it's showing it off over here. Alright, really. Yeah, well, you don't even understand how high. But let me show you. While it's super big like this, will be kind of good. This is one of the things I did recently.
Oh, nice.
That's cool. Spin, spin, spin. It spins.
And this is going to really suck because I don't know how I can do this with a stupid resolution that I have.
So this is not wallpaper.
On my laptop right now, it's this big. Like my screen is this big, and I have this much of a screen. Like this is, it does some just really, really weird stuff. Let me try to increase the resolution here. Would that be 19? What does that do?
Hey!
So welcome to Enlightenment! Finally! Okay. So, and as you can, this is my theme, by the way. This is not how he looks by default.
I think our little start bar at the bottom is missing here on this.
No, it's there.
Okay, you can have yours at the
I
top.
know my environment. Let me do my demo! Alright, now I've somewhat got this thing running. Let me get through this before the camera dies. How much time we got?
6 minutes.
Oh shit. Alright. Alright, let's get this real quick. Alright, so we get terminology open here. This is one of my favorite little things that I asked about recently.
It looks like a terminal. That looks like an old terminal that belongs to some sort of PDP
It's an old terminal, yeah. It's got the, like I said, you can't see it. But that thing's,
PDP-11.
if you get close enough to that thing, you can see it's flaring out. That cursor, whenever it blinks.
That's pretty neat.
But wait, I'm gonna do something cool here in a second. Let me get to this.
Well, put this light on my
Hang on, let me find this thing. This thing keeps moving all my little files around on here, so I gotta find this file real fast. What was that? Damn it, did you delete it? Dead. Oh shit. Oh man, you're gonna make me try to remember this shit now. Alright, you know this, Travis, what's the, it's a, like 007, what's the beat back thing?
What?
The character for the beat, for the backspace. Damn, I got this in a file somewhere.
It's either an 8.
I know I think this to a file.
Now, each time it does those little fancy effects on terminology,
Hang on.
does it have sound?
When a window gets focused, that little icon in the corner will start like bouncing. It'll start zooming in and out, and there'll be a shadow around the window starts going crazy. Man, this is really pissing me off, because I literally just put the thing in a file on my desktop before I left. But it deleted my presentation. My presentation is sitting on my desktop too. It's all the wrong machine.
8 is the
It's on this board. That's why I'm going over.
Yeah, no, this
Alright, so while we're doing that, let's see here some other stuff. So it's, as you can see, it's got some effects. It does this little folding thing here. Here is eCrier. This is the text editor that I've been working on. One of the things that I've added to this thing that you'll notice here is you see it going alpha.
What?
And as you type text, the text is not an alpha. One of the little effects that I added here that I did in code, which is essentially the wrong way to do this, that you're supposed to do the proper way, is I have an animation when I open the document. And let's see, we're going to go to document. Are you guys ready? Because it goes kind of quick. Oh shit. My code sucks, it crashed. Let's try it again. Smaller document. Oh, come on, really? Dude, what the? There we go.
There we go.
Did everybody see that? And I can change it to be a different animation, and Eve had to do it a little bit different.
That's cool.
So
that's real cool.
Just little, like I said, little animations. If I go to my main menu, what do I want to select?
That's really nice.
So animations like that, you know, we're going to log in here real fast and type command, and then that'll pretty much conclude the eye candy stuff. And then if you want to see code and actual details of how that's done, I can show you. And actually, I'll try to log out and log back in too. If you see how fast this starts up, it blows everything away. nothing, oh, here's another thing I absolutely freaking love. Take a screenshot
Of the window.
of that
That's
window,
awesome.
or
Desktop, if you do.
take a screenshot of the whole desktop. I'm hoping at some point I open a bug for them to add record desktop to that would be freaking bitchin'.
Another thing that's really cool.
And now, here's another thing I see mentioned about that too, is if I take a screenshot, I can share it. And it'll upload it to Enlightenment and give me a public URL to give to anybody else. So it makes sharing screenshots just stupid fast and efficient. But hang on, I gotta get this on camera before we lose this one thing. This is cool. Alright, I gotta take this one to sleep. Alright. Yeah, that's right. Copy and paste it, but it's on the wrong laptop. But what I was trying to use. But you see what I'm saying now, Dan? I bet you it was just this setting that I just had to turn on here. So I probably couldn't use my other laptop this whole time.
Don't use single quotes. Double quotes.
No, I need to. I got it. This is very quirky at times. If I don't do this right, it's not going to work. So. Alright. Let's see here if I can do this right. It's telling me that window needs attention right now. Something happened to that window, I need to focus my attention. For example, if I'm doing an update on the system, a lot of times the output of a merge will trigger that. So if I'm working on another window and I need to refocus back on another window, it gives me animated alerts. As you can see, the shadow, the icon, and that's just somebody's choice. It could do a hell of a lot more than that. The whole window could be going crazy, it could be playing audio, it could be playing a video, it could be doing all kinds of different stuff. And essentially that is EDJE. And if you want to see that, we'll dive into some of the actual coding stuff now. I know about NetBeans, but I don't want anything crashing on me when I load the files. I'm a NetBeaner. So I do all my coding and editing and stuff like that in, and if the camera dies at this point, we're pretty much good to go. It's all the other stuff I'm working on, everything else. And real quickly, let me switch off my feed. Like I said, this is my feed. It's there's a art thing for Gnome. There was a guy who was making the art thing for Enlightenment. I liked a lot of what he did for that, so I kind of took that theme and started messing with it and changing colors and making my own theme. But there are aspects of the deep, I'll show you both of them if you want to see. There's aspects of the default theme that I like, that I've been kind of combining both those into mine or whatever. But this is really normally how he would look for you. He would be blue. It would have different looks to it. That program I had a second ago, open prior, would look a little bit different too. One of the things I added to this program this whole thing down here, that's all the search. I still got to code that a little differently. That essentially was more like this, which I really don't like that at all. And that essentially will also be something like this, or it'll be like this thing on terminology. Actually, camera still going?
Just about to.
Shit, I'm on again. Damn it. Any pictures on this one? I don't know if I do or not.
Okay, that's your first. But also, one other thing to note here is, if you notice, most of the way that the stuff is designed is designed for a touchscreen.
Well, and that's what I think is the biggest differences between, and this thing has different modes, by the way. I'm not in any of those modes. When you first log into Enlightenment and in settings, it asks you what you want. Whether you want a desktop, a tiling window manager, or whether you want mobile. I haven't done the mobile thing yet. It also has a presentation mode, which I think is kind of useful for that, since that's going to disable the screensaver or stuff like that.
Yes.
There is a, I don't know where it's at in here. When you first started like I said, it's going to ask you which profile you want. If you want to check out the mobile, the other ones you can. I think it has a kind of different layout, stuff like that to it.
I've just used the desktop too, but even using that, like you notice, you've got all these buttons.
Again, going back to what I was saying, my interest in this is that I want to be able to use it on a laptop, on a desktop, on a phone, on a tablet. As far as when I bought an all-in-one laptop, this has a touchscreen. It's a convertible thing. It has a pen. So essentially, as I develop EFL applications on this, I'll know that they'll be able to work on a touchscreen device or whatever natively. When I do an Android application, I have to run an emulator and try to use a mouse to replicate finger stuff. It's very difficult through an emulator like that. So if I can develop mobile applications natively on a native platform, I think that would just be totally bitchy. So that again goes back into why I think it has the best overall potential. This is not doing it properly like it should. This has an effect where it kind of zooms into the image and stuff like that. But everything here is essentially somewhat animated. See how that comes out like that? That's also more EDJE type stuff. And again, if I go to edit the image, it comes out like that. Again, that's all, you won't see other toolkits doing stuff like that, because they simply don't have the capabilities to do those type of things.
That's really cool.
And if you notice up here too, I don't like how these are over here. I had to use EDJE to move those to the other side. So I'm gonna go back to my theme now. And you can also make it, this thing is configurable in ways that other environments are just not configurable. You can get rid of all your window borders. You can do some seriously crazy stuff that'll make this thing almost impossible for
And
you.
you can actually do that at an individual app level too. It's kind of cool.
So let's look at this stuff. All right, so let's look at some stuff here real quick. Okay, so this is EDJE, or this is an EDC file essentially. This is for the file manager. Let me open up the one that I use for the window borders so I can walk you through that one and actually get more familiar with the code of that one. And see, I got a clone display right now. What I'm seeing, you're seeing. Okay, so here is the file that's responsible for this. Everything you see up here, the title, the icon, how these little things spin, that's all of this file right here. I won't get into too much of the details because you guys kind of get a little bit complex as far as the structure of it and stuff like that. But essentially you have the various parts. Right here essentially is how the close button is assembled. It's got different states, an inactive state, an active state, an hover state, a press state. And if you notice there's different, ways to reference each of these states. If I come down a little bit more, because that one doesn't have some different stuff, you'll start to see some stuff here. So like right here is where you start seeing some of the rounded corners. It's using a PNG for that. So if you look up here like that little thing right there, and up in this little corner that's rounded, which you can see more if I take it to corners, like that little purple dot right there. That's what that corner is rounded. That's coming from the image. Everything you see here are little JPEG or PNGs or various images you can swap out. Back down here. So like right here, for example, is the minimize button. Okay? And you can see some of the positioning of it, but if you notice down there, you see the rotation. You see the state default rotated. That's partly how I'm doing these rotation animation effects. And then what happens is later on, you come down here and you do that with actually a program. You can see, these are all the different parts just of that window border. So it can get pretty freaking complex. So now we get down to the actual programs here, for example. Remember that thing I just showed you a second ago, the icon bouncing? These are the things that does that. If it enters a state of urgent, it runs that first program. You see the line where it says after, run urgent 1. So after it runs urgent 1, that gives it a different deceleration rate for its transition. After you run urgent 1, run urgent 2, which runs urgent 2, which calls urgent 1 again, and it runs that loop. That's what made that icon bounce out and out like that. That's how that's done. It's not done via code. That's done via something you or I or anybody can edit outside of it. Not easily editable, but it's something you can edit and do, which I did. And I did it down here, for example, to rotate stuff. There you go. So when I come over this close button right here, and you see that rotating, rotate start, close. It happens when the mouse goes over it. The source of it is the event close. The target is the event close. After you're going to run the rotate loop, which binds in both of those things. The thing about the target and the source is they don't always have to be the same thing. Say I want the maximize or minimize button to do something when I'm over the close button, that's where those things would come from in that sense. So you can really link stuff together. You can have more than one target, so you can have a bunch of different things doing stuff all at once. And you can see the different states and you just kind of go back and forth. You can have as many programs as you want, as little programs as you want. They are not required. They are just what's going to be doing the various functioning for you, switching between the different states that create the animations for you. And that's how all that stuff is done.
Is this all on the L community, or can you go ahead and, or is there something more specific when you're trying to learn how to program these animations?
Well, like I said, there's the inventor, ID. I don't know what to call that. Like what you get kind of editor.
Is it big?
Yeah, I think it's broken on here. I don't know if I still have it installed. Yeah, I remember. It broke so many damn times I couldn't use it. It was very funky, but I mean it's out there. I'll show you show you if you want to see what it looks like. And as you can tell, I like to regard things. This is GTK, for example. I'm running an Adawada thing with GTK, and it doesn't really fully match up to the other stuff. See, the color's a little bit different. So I've got to kind of tweak that out if I want to try to get things to look more the same or whatever as far as that.
I was gonna ask you.
So these are kind of the, if you look, like this is their main download page, that's it. There's really not a lot. If you want to go for a bit more applications, there are a few more listed on their wiki. Fabricator is the most weirdest thing that ever in the world has come out of Facebook. It's extremely strange. I don't like it. But everybody's switching over to it, or some people are anyway. Those are other applications. A majority of those are in Python, not all of them. And then you have some of the other stuff down here. I don't use it because I'm a network manager type person, and there is no network manager module or user interface or anything like that for this right now. They use eConman. eConman, depending on your use, is a little bit lighter weight than network manager, and it's not bad, but there is support for that in Enlightenment.
Yeah.
I don't use it because it doesn't have up and down hooks. It has a lot of stuff embedded in it, like NTP, stuff like that, but I use my up and down hooks to like mount NFS servers and do other type of stuff like that, so I really need those, and that doesn't have that for me, so it's not really an option for me. There is an IDE, EDI, I think I have that on here, I can show you. And in fact, EDI is using something called Elm code. I'm using Elm code for this as well. So in here, if you notice, there's little arrows right here. If I hit tabs, you see those arrows right there? If I do, I'll come down here and do spaces, damn it, this is E-code retaining that for me when I do that. Stop it, damn it, get out of the way, E-code, I don't want those tabs. It's meant for coding in that sense to try to help you out, but like, if this was spaces, it would give you that kind of visual indicator. If I actually opened up a code file, it would actually have syntax highlighting, and that doesn't come from anything that I've programmed. That's coming from elementary code, which was a widget essentially made for the EDI. Source with it. You crash on me. So then you got syntax highlighted. But I do not code any of that. I am just using an object called Elm code that allows me to drop that in there, and I get all that functionality. I get code completion, I get line numbers. I did add a feature to be able to turn line numbers on and off. That's kind of a little wonky. It doesn't always update right away as it should. I think he's fixing that bug. Word wrap's broken right now. I'm waiting for him to put word wrap in the thing as far as that. Fonts and all that type of stuff are really strange in Enlightenment. One thing I was telling Dan about earlier, oh, by the way, if you notice, I am clicking on the desktop for this. A normal right click. I mean, a normal left click, not a right click. So you click anywhere on your desktop, there's your menu. I don't have anything down here for my menu because I don't use that. They also have one of these type of animations, if you notice. They kind of used to have more of the Apple start bar, but they're kind of trying to be different as far as the looks of those type of things and go kind of a different direction with those effects.
Well, yeah, it's impressive because the way it's so smooth and everything.
Now, one of the things that's a little strange about Enlightenment, in a sense, is the scaling feature. You know, Dan and I were talking at first. He's like, "Well, fonts are too small. You go in and change the font size." Not really. You come in here and scale the user interface. So if you notice when I do this, everything's gonna get bigger. It's gonna start making everything bigger. If you look how much room stuff's taking up on the screen, like these are getting bigger. See how big my mouse is compared to that menu thing? Now watch. See how much bigger it got? So it has a scaling aspect to it, which is something that I've not seen any other desktops do. I tend to run at 1.25. That's what I was trying to tell you. If I ran the native one, it's just way too small. That doesn't look bad on this screen, but it gets kind of small over here. Like reading that settings, that's probably pretty hard for you guys to read that right there. Where's the settings right there? Yep. And if your resolution is higher than 1080p, it gets stupid small. So almost everybody that I know for the most part is using some sort of scale factor. I don't know if anybody's really using a standard scale. And it does have various effects. It does have a built-in compositor. And you can go in and modify some of its effects, but it's not like what you think. A lot of it just has to be coded, basically.
Wobbly Windows. www. Somebody ought to do it.
There you go.
Oh, that's weird.
And when they're doing these type of effects like K-Wind, these are native. This is not coded, this is not replacing anything to do these things. The problem is a lot of this code is in experimental patches. You're gonna have to modify the stuff and put it in there yourself. It's not available right now. I got the copy of the Wobbly Window patch from the original author who worked for Samsung, Mike Waltkamp or whatever, really nice guy. There's a lot of great guys in the community who started that stuff. And like I said, I've come across the main author, which I think is just kind of crazy. But this is like the GUI builder or whatever. Am I the right one? No, this is the wrong one. This is Arago. Arago is no more. They're hoping somebody comes along and resurrects this. I can't exactly tell you what the hell this thing is. I guess it's the graphic user interface builder, but it's an abandoned project now, so I don't know how practical it is to use this thing. The interfaces to me are just kind of strange to use. I don't know. Other people I guess find them easy to use. They're weird to me at least. But that's the Arago, which is no. Arago is Arago. I'm trying to find. This is the current one that you would use if you want to mess with the EDJ files in like a visual way. Is this thing? I've never been able to figure out how to use this thing. The best case scenario gives you syntax highlighting for the EDC files, which is nice, but it's weird. I don't know. I've not been able to resize these panes and stuff, and it's just a lot of. I find it difficult to use. If you're able to use this and create some fiction, themes and graphics and effects and looks, great. I'll use them. Let me know. And let's see. The last thing I'll show you real quick is the difference between a coded effect and a let's hand everything over to EDJ and let them do this stuff. So in ePrior, for example, this document open thing again, and I gotta, if you notice, keep going back to my home folder, I gotta code it so it stays in the recently opened folder. I gotta create a recently opened file list, all kinds of this. I've got a ton of features I gotta add to this thing. So that effect where you just saw that thing scroll up. Right there. So Elm transition. I just add a transition. I'm adding a translation transition. The translation basically says go from 0 to 600. So, well, actually starting out at 600, then go to 0. So that's why you see it down at the bottom and then it comes up to the top. And the duration is 0.75 milliseconds or whatever.
So what happens if you full screen that window? What?
This one?
Yeah. And then open something.
Same thing.
Well, 700 is below. Is it line 700 or pixel 700? Yeah.
It starts midway. I gotta go down more.
Yeah.
That's more of a sizing thing. It's I'm starting with the default sizing every time, so that's why I go for that. But there's, like I said, this thing needs a ton of work. It's only in the shape that you're seeing it because I came along and started hacking on it. I took the project over. It's on my like I said, this is the official source of that right now. And I do releases of it at times. So I mean, you can try to use these binaries. I just make them. I don't run them. I don't know how they work. There are Gen 2 e-builds for this thing. Anytime I do release, there's a current Gen 2 e-build to update for it. And I've done a fair amount of releases of it as I've taken over. And as far as me so far, I don't think I've replaced as many lines of code as the original author yet, but I definitely killed him on the commit so far. He was the original author, and I did get his approval to take it over. Originally, this was supposed to be a project within Enlightenment. Eventually, I may become an Enlightenment developer, but I had a problem where the main author decided that he needed to fix an issue on Wayland, which kind of bugged me because I was talking to them saying that, hey, I'm preparing I just merged my branch into the master branch. I'm ready for my repo to be pulled back and merged into the repo back in Enlightenment. And he went and made a commit in a repo that nobody's touched in years. And it's not a big deal, but the commit has to be reverted before I can merge my work into this repo. But it doesn't make any sense because he just jumps in here and makes a commit when nobody's been working on this thing. So basically this commit has to be reverted before my work can get pulled back into it. But what that said to me was that they're not really respectful if somebody else is working on that code. They're going to jump in there and modify the code anytime they see fit. So because of that, I don't feel comfortable having code in Enlightenment repos where they can just go and touch it anytime they feel like it, without running it by who's actively working on it.
It's hope that some of this Slovenia really be interpreted.
Well, that's another thing. This was more about Wayland. If you see there, this was because there was a a piece of ePrior code that was specific to X, not to Wayland, and it was causing crashes on Wayland, and the person who did this is the original author of Enlightenment, so it pissed him off. He went in there and did this real quickly, and he's kind of one of those people that, because he's the original author, whatever he wants to do in his repos, he can do that. It's his stuff, so we kind of butted heads a little bit over that, and that was one of our first. We've had a few headbutting, but we've had other good interactions too. I talked to him probably about an hour last night, getting information from his presentation without any sort of problem, so it goes both different ways. So.
Good night. Thanks, guys.
Good night.
All right.
And then, so then, like I said, the only other thing that I showed it to you in EDJE, so then the last part would be how it ties into from the entrance. And this is the opposite approach. This is a coded animation, which you're not really supposed to do because, say, I like it to rise up from the bottom, you want it to come from the top, you want it to come from the left, somebody else wants it to rotate. I'm not giving you guys a choice over that. So it really shouldn't be in code, it should be in an EDC file, where you guys can have control over that kind of stuff. And, do I even have it? I don't have it on me, so I can show you that. Well, I can show you actually the replay. Okay, here we go. So, for example, right here, for the login things, these are the login and the password entries. You type your login, type your password, but it doesn't really have anything to it because right here where it's saying entrance login, it's handing everything over to EDJE. So other than saying that this interface has an entry widget that's been used for password and binding it to a few things, all the other looks and all the other aspects of it are all handed over to EDJE. So in EDJE, I'd have an entrance login, and that's where we control the looks and everything for that aspect of it. And so somebody can make it look totally different, put it wherever they want it to, and it's all done via an external file. Essentially, that's how you want to do all your looks, all your animations, all that kind of stuff in Enlightenment. But it's kind of complex because you have to do it twofold. Versus doing all the animations in code, you've got to do that, then I got to go create the entrance login group in the EDC file, do all my stuff there, and then kind of bounce back and forth through the two. It's just a different development style. It's not normal for a lot of other environments, but that's just how it works here. And then I'll just show you real quickly if I carry it over. And then select right, go back to that free form. And I go into the default.
And you've taken a record for the longest update.
So here's the styles essentially for that. And if you see the swallow, basically it's saying that when that widget comes up on the interface, don't show it. You're gonna capture that interface and put it up there so that these things can take over from there and do whatever you want to it. You can see here I'm setting a size for it. And then it goes from there. If you want to see if I can try to log out and log back in one time. There we go. Don't know if you can see that way. If you see the login time, it's just stupid. And then the memory usage once I log back in. And if you want to see entrance, I'll show you. Okay. 1, 2, 3, boom!
Nice.
I remember that.
And it's completely ready to go.
And yeah, it's done. Everything is, there's nothing waiting to be started, everything's fully clickable. The only problem I'm having right here is not clicking probably the icon. That little effect is something weird watching that.
Yeah, I keep thinking you're gonna
See my memory?
Cat.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
The other thing that I really
All right.
and then the very last thing, I'll just start entrance real quick because it was just puking on me before. And this is what I'm resurrecting. Yeah, you think I'm quick clap. You're never getting. I told you I was verbose. I told you to be along. I told you to be a lot into this. I didn't believe you.
Give 2 more minutes.
Once I restart this, I'm technically done.
The display manager.
I'm just showing you this. I don't think I'm actually going to log in to get it. If it wants to start on me. There we go. So this is entrance.
Oh.
I like that.
I like that.
That's its own little thing. You can see.
It's kind of like light VM.
Here. Alright, so see how that, like, little animations?
Oh,
Again, this is all native EFL stuff. This is nothing I'm doing coding wise. These are how these widgets work by normal. And this actually made let me log in and see. Oh, you may be nice to me. Please let me log in.
Sweet.
So that's like, you can't beat that. That thing is just, it's stupid fast. And I don't have all this on that one, but I had screenshots of the older stuff that doesn't matter now. There you go. So yeah, it wasn't your Ford, it wasn't anything, it was Enlightenment. And I bet you if I go back to the laptop, I can enable it, it'll work fine.
Probably good.